Okay, we are live. We are live now. This is a very um, exclusive stream. This is a first for us here on My Left Eye with the live stream, a late night live stream, and we're waiting for the results of the Rochdale by-election. As I'm sure you're all aware, that's why you're tuning in tonight. Thanks a lot for being here. If you've not done so already, please do hit the subscribe and notification buttons and all that jazz. We're going to be going through the live news commentary of what's going on tonight, as well as taking a retrospective look at some of the candidates in tonight's crucial by-election in Rochdale. And this could be quite an embarrassing night for Labour. It looks set that George Galloway is going to be taking the seat from Labour. Just a quick reminder for those of you who aren't familiar with our previous content on the matter. Tony Lloyd, who was the incumbent Labour MP, suddenly died tragically earlier on in the year, which has triggered this by-election. And Azhar Ali replaced him as the Labour candidate. There's been a massive media furore over Azhar Ali, some of the comments that he's made in the media, in the press, leaked comments as well from public meetings, which just repeated what has previously been reported in publications like the Washington Post about Israel's previous knowledge about the coming Hamas attacks on October the 7th. So many news stories over this by-election, including that. We've had the Green Party, whose candidate has been covered in controversy. We've had a lot of interesting independent candidates, including Mark Coleman, who is the first independent representative who is standing as a Green candidate, representing, not really representing, I should sort of reiterate there, but who's a supporter of Just Stop Oil and is the Green candidate. There's been a lot of controversy over other candidates. In fact, there are 3 former Labour candidates now in this by-election, as well as Galloway, who's seen as the front runner. We're going to go into that in a bit more detail in tonight's live stream, but thanks a lot for joining us tonight. We are very pleased to announce that we've also got the YouTube membership program open now for anybody who'd like to consider contributing towards the channel. For just the price of a coffee every month, you can get exclusive access to a lot of perks, exclusive videos, exclusive live streams, exclusive emojis. The list goes on and on. Please do consider supporting the channel here on My Left Eye. Thanks a lot for being with us here tonight. Please do remember to add your thoughts in the comments. This is a first for us here on My Left Eye as we go live, as the results come into this by-election. A very interesting by-election, I'm sure that you'll agree. Let us know your thoughts about what's happening with the by-election. If you're in Rochdale specifically, we'd love to know your thoughts. If you'd like to share with us how you voted, obviously you don't have to, but the bookmakers and the exit polls certainly agree that it could be an upset for Labour tonight. So we're going to be going into the live media footage with commentary shortly. We're going to be going into the BBC coverage, and prior to that we're going to remind ourselves about the candidates, how this by-election came along in the first place, and very specifically it's very hard to avoid the issue that the MP's position on the situation in Gaza is obviously coming into this by-election a lot. Okay, so we may as well begin by just reminding everybody that I'm just going to go over to some pictures here. Bear with one sec. So Azhar Ali, this is Azhar Ali, the former Labour candidate, and this is where this whole helter-skelter of politics begins. So Azhar Ali, the former Labour candidate, who is, if he is elected, will stand as an independent, was suspended by the Labour Party for making alleged, and we have to re-emphasise that, anti-Semitic comments at a community meeting. As far as I'm aware, in said community meeting, he made criticisms against Israel. He also emphasised something that was also shared, as I said, in the Washington Post and other media, that Israel may have had prior knowledge of the attacks on October the 7th last year. How much they did or didn't know about those attacks remains to be seen. And it was alleged by Ali that Israel used that knowledge of the attacks as an excuse to commit the atrocities that we've unfortunately been seeing throughout the last 5 months. However, regardless of the controversy over that, I should just re-emphasise that comments like that, criticisms of Israel, are not anti-Semitic. He didn't make any diss remarks against Jewish people. And this conflation between anti-Israel, anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism is ongoing, and that's going to be one of the factors in this by-election tonight. Just a quick reminder for those of you who haven't seen our previous videos on the matter, you can check them out now. But just to sort of go over how this by-election came around and further into the controversies that have been happening around it. This is Tony Lloyd, who was the incumbent Labour MP, who died suddenly earlier on in the year, which has triggered this by-election. Tony Lloyd, back in November 2023, when there was a vote motion put forward for a ceasefire in Gaza, abstained on the motion. He followed Keir Starmer and the Whip's line in abstaining on the vote, not voting against, but abstaining on the vote, which, as far as it goes, turned out to be as good as voting against. I don't like to speak ill of the dead, of course. It's obviously, it's tragic that Tony Lloyd died, and our thoughts go out to his family. However, on this issue with the vote on a ceasefire in Gaza, he did abstain. He did follow the Labour whips. There were 141 Labour members who abstained on the issue, and only 56 voted for, which just kind of goes to re-emphasise the state of the Labour Party at the moment. Just to go back to Azhar Ali, it's worth mentioning that he was quite the Blairite, as it were. He was an advisor to Blair. He was very close to Blair, although he does personally support a ceasefire in Gaza. Labour's official position is that of towing the pro-Israel Zionist line, which Keir Starmer particularly has re-emphasised. He said that, and this is a direct quote, that he supports Zionism without qualification, and therefore he is fully behind Israel, and we can't really believe anything in terms of how he's pretending now to support Gazans, and the fact that he's seen how much support there is for the plight of Gazans just shows how much he's kind of electioneering and being a weather vane in terms of politics and just going where the wind blows. He can't support Zionism as well as supporting Gazans. That's just like two opposites. It might as well be opposite ends of a magnet. They just retract each other, and that is just pure electioneering on terms of Keir Starmer's part. But fundamentally, when it comes to people who are looking to vote for Labour, whether it's in a by-election or in the upcoming general election, really have to consider these kind of things. And there are many issues in Rochdale, I'm sure, but the issues of the situation in Gaza and the ongoing occupation and oppression at the hands of Israel are clearly in the public's mind. as I'm sure you'll agree. So we're going to be going over to some live footage soon. We're not sure exactly when the result will come in, but thanks a lot for joining us here on the My Left Eye live stream here tonight. Please do let us know your thoughts in the comments. Ben Pritchard says, thanks for the commentary. Solidarity from New Zealand. Wow, a long way away. Let's hope Galloway shake the political system. Yeah, thanks a lot for joining us here tonight, Ben. And yeah, that if Galloway does win, which looks it's not assured, but it's odds on, as you'll have seen from our previous videos, that really would shake up the political system. This pre-apprehension that Keir Starmer is just going to be able to walk into every seat. Obviously, people are done with the Tories, they're sick of the Tories, but Keir Starmer's just assuming that everybody's going to walk over to Labour, and if Galloway wins in Rochdale tonight, that will mean a few things. First of all, it will mean that that is not the case, that people are just simply walking over to Labour. I've said a lot of times on the channel that I believe at the next general election there'll be a lot of surprise results. There will be surprise gains for independent candidates, of which there are many, in all of the seats across the UK, as well as maybe a couple of gains for the Greens as well, because the climate crisis and other things are really coming into the public consciousness at the moment. So it's probably not going to be the walk in the park that Keir Starmer thinks it might be. And just before we move on to talking about some of the other candidates, I just want to reiterate the fact that we don't have this bipartisan American-style system between, Republicans and Democrats. It doesn't have to be Tory and Labour, which a lot of people seem to think it is at the moment. Let's remind ourselves that the Liberal Democrats, of all parties, were in government even more recently than Labour. So it's not without precedent that you don't just have this bipartisan choice. As people go into the ballot box, they have a much wider selection in the UK than they do in America. And it's up to people to use that choice, to use that vote. Whether they're going, I would encourage people. Obviously, on My Left Eye, we talk about socialist issues. I would encourage people to vote for either a socialist independent, or if there's a trade union socialist coalition candidate, to vote for them, or a grassroots socialist party. And there are many of those coming across the UK at the moment. There have been basically since just after Keith got in. So you do have a choice. You do have that power within you to vote for whomever you want, and it is not for political parties to assume that they have the right to your vote. Sorry if that was a bit of a diatribe there, but thanks a lot for tuning in, and we're going to move on shortly. I'm just going to check out the latest from BBC News, but in the meantime, for a moment or so, I'm going to take you across to Keith's Fondue Lounge, which regular viewers might be slightly familiar with at the moment. And sorry, just have to make a few technical adjustments here for a few moments. But I'm going to take you over to Keith's Fondue Lounge, and you might want to use your imagination about what's going on in this party here. You're going to see a completely neoliberal fondue party, which is forwarded to us, I should acknowledge, by a friend of ours called The Agitator, who's a great guy, and he puts together great clips like this. So just for a minute or so, I just need to switch over. So bear with, and then we're going to go across and see what the latest is on the count in the by-election, obviously. Thanks a lot for joining us here tonight, and thanks for staying up as well. It's a late night live stream, and thanks for being with us so late in the day. Hope you've got maybe a coffee or some snacks or something with you. But enjoy some fondue with Keith and his pals. Let's see who we can see. So Keith's cooking up some fondue there, excuse me, as you can see, and over his left shoulder you've got Mandy there, Peter Mandelson, who's of course got a great reputation, societal reputation for various nefarious activities which I won't go into just now, and just over his right shoulder is of course Tony Blair, the assistor to a massive occupation in Afghanistan and Iraq, and the old war peddler there himself. You can see to the left of your screen, I believe that's Margaret Hodge, but what's going on the other side of the sofa there remains to be seen. A couple of casual guests towards the back, next to the dog, who just seems to be completely unenthused about Keith's fondue party. So careful if you're taking a dip in Keith's cheese this evening, but it might end up that he's got some egg on his face by the end of this morning if George Galloway does take the seat from Labour. I just can't give enough props to the agitator. You can follow him on Twitter at the agitator. Just look him up. He puts together great stuff like this. Yeah, so classic, and look at what a great bunch of people. You can see Lisa Nandy there. Is that Lisa Nandy right at the back? Can you see on the sofa with her head just underneath the lamp? That might be Lisa Nandy. I'll zoom in. Yep, I believe it is. That's Pure Keith, Lisa Nandy as well, of course. So if you're listening in Rochdale, please do let us know tonight what you think about the by-election and how you may or may not have voted. We've got a few comments as well. Thanks a lot for joining us in the comments. We do like to encourage a lot of discussion. Obviously, this is politics and sociology and all that jazz, so please do let us know your thoughts. Nadim Ovich, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, asks, was Mandy on the Epstein flight list? Yeah, that was the kind of nefarious situation I was referring to there. His affiliation with a known and convicted nonce, if I'm being perfectly frank, has been brought into extreme obscurity because even after the allegations were made, he attended a certain party at the residence of the late Epstein. Yeah, thank you for those comments as well. Billy Lean asks, says, what a crappy photo, enough to give me nightmares. Yeah, I wouldn't like to go to a party and when I got through the door I was presented with that scene, let me tell you. Okay, right, thanks a lot. We've done with the warm-up now. Thanks a lot for joining us on the My Left Eye late night live stream. As it turns out, you're very welcome here tonight. If you've not done so already, please do hit the subscribe, like, thumbs up buttons and all that, and help us project out onto the algorithm. We're trying to get over 1,000 subscribers at the moment. We're getting nearly there, and we've got the membership program open as well. If you want to enjoy some more perks, please do check out the links in the channel description. So let's go over to the screen now. That's something I was going to be showing you later on. Spoiler alert. Okay, so let's go over to the footage of the count for now. Just see what's going on.
Wildly unpredictable, this race over the last couple of weeks, but tonight, Mr. Galloway's team are sounding very confident. We'll find out the result in the middle.
Bit of buffer in there. Sorry about that.
That is our political editor, Chris Mason. Still with us is Joe Twyman from the polling company Delta Poll. Joe,
okay, so from the just turn this guy down. So from the initial reports there, it looks like Galloway could be heading on to a winner. Let's just see what's going on.
No good outcome for Labour. The least worst outcome for Labour is that Azhar Ali does win, and then perhaps is welcomed back into the party quietly after a period of reflection and perhaps some apology, or indeed is just left on the backbenches and then replaced come the general election in the next few months. But that is the least worst option. There are much worse options for Labour, and I think having George Galloway in the party.
Okay, sorry about the buffering there, but it does appear that Labour are indeed worried about losing this seat to Galloway. The party, the Workers' Party of Britain, just to remind you that he's not standing as an independent, but it's the Workers' Party of Britain, appear to already be shouting victory, so we'll have to see. We'll see. This got, you know.
It's a normal by-election, and of course by-elections are always unusual in some respects. Were this a normal by-election, we would be talking about whether Labour were able to replicate its national polling performance at the ballot box in Rochdale. But with them having disavowed their candidate and not campaigned at all, it's really impossible to know what kind of.
Well, I think he's right though. In any case, it doesn't matter. It's not going to turn out good for Labour. And Nadeem Ovich also commenting there. Thanks a lot for your comment. Says George Galloway is the buggish choice. Obviously, he is. We've done a video about this just yesterday. If you want to check that out after you've listened to the live stream, of course. That he was the clear front runner going into this by-election.
We've got the budget coming up, which will be one of the factors because the economy will be a big issue in the general election campaign.
Yes, that's right. We don't know when the election is, and I'm not sure that Rishi Sunak knows when the general election is. He has said that his, quote, working assumption is that it will be the second half of this year, but nobody really knows what that means. I think a May election is unlikely unless the Conservatives happen to have an extremely good budget next week, and they.
Okay, while they're going on with that there, just a shout out to Alden Allfather. Thanks a lot again for joining us on the chat tonight. Yeah, they ditched their own candidate. What did they expect? They are just trying to perpetuate this anti-Semitism, this false scam of anti-Semitism, which is perpetuated since before the last general election as well, and the fact that it's coming up now at least just because Azhar Ali criticised Israel and supports ceasefire in Gaza, really goes to show the lengths that the Labour Party are prepared to go to perpetuate this myth. And we did a members-only live stream all about that and all the stuff that came up in Parliament yesterday at PMQs. So if you want to check that out, please do. For the price of a coffee, you can help to support the channel, as well as getting a lot of exclusive perks, such as exclusive videos, early videos, exclusive emojis on the live streams, including this one, and exclusive live streams as well, plus a lot more perks to come. So please do help support the channel in that way if you can. Thanks a lot for joining us tonight on the live stream. We're going through the Rochdale by-election. It's at this stage highly expected that George Galloway, who you can see here during his campaign, is expected to take the seat from Labour. Of course, the incumbent Labour MP Tony Lloyd died suddenly, only which has triggered this by-election. But we're just going to cut away from the live footage now and go to some of the candidates and talk through some of the finer points. quick trip to Keith's Fondue there. So that's Tony Lloyd, who's the incumbent, whose death has triggered this by-election, and Azhar Ali is the former Labour candidate, as we just talked about, was suspended for alleged anti-Semitic comments. However, the vote on Gaza last November is still fresh in voters' minds, and that's been shown through a few clips that we've seen going around, including this one. Viewers on the show already be familiar with this, but for those of you who are new, you're very welcome here for a start. Thanks a lot for joining us. But this is the kind of reception that Labour have been receiving when they're going out to canvass during this by-election as well.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah?
Yeah?
Madam.
No, we don't support Zionists. Bye.
Hey,
We don't support Zionists. You can go away.
thank you. We're not Zionists.
Yes, you are.
Sorry. Bye-bye.
Yeah, okay, bye.
And even though Azhar Ali himself supports a ceasefire, you've got to run it up the chain and go back to Keir Starmer, who obviously clearly supports Zionism without qualification, as per direct quote from him. So that's clearly fresh in a lot of voters' minds as we go into this by-election as well. So if you've not done so already, please do hit a thumbs up and the notification bell and all that stuff on the live stream tonight. Ogham the Bold, thanks a lot for joining us tonight. It is nail-biting stuff as well. It certainly is. The bookmakers have it in favour of Galloway as of yesterday. Obviously, the book's been closed since the voting opened, so Labour running in second position, and then it's a clear tail off before that. But I just want to go through some of the other candidates before we go back to the live footage as it comes in. Excuse me, I just want to mute that. It's going off in my earphones. Not sure if you can hear it as well. I hope you can. I've got this, don't worry. Okay, so going back to obviously George Galloway, the front runner, and he's stood in quite a few seats, as I'm sure that you know. He's a former Labour MP himself, and he's been very vocal about war and warfare ever since the Iraq war, going way back 20 years or so, and now he's been very outspoken about the occupation of Palestine, and he's got a great reputation for speaking out against wars and occupation, as well as we're going to see shortly, holding mainstream media commentators and interviewers to account in terms of their style of interviewing. So obviously he's the front runner now, George Galloway, odds on to win this seat tonight. We're still waiting for the results to come in. Don't worry, I've got the news of the live stream on another screen here, so I'm going to do my best to coordinate between this and keeping up with the comments on the screen. But thanks a lot for joining us here tonight as well. Just want to re-emphasise that. Odin Allfather says, Sir Starmer has lived up to my every expectation. He has given me faith in my ability to spot a total scumbag. Of course, it really is underhanded, and we talked about this on the last live stream. Just a reminder that we do a live stream regularly every Sunday at 7 o'clock, and Odin Allfather, thanks a lot for joining us on those live streams as well. Looking forward to seeing you next time too. So the thing is, Yanis Varoufakis and other social commentators have pointed out that where a Tory's a Tory, you know what you're getting. And pardon the language, this is a live stream, so I'm going to have to let go a bit on the language and stuff. But a bastard is a bastard when you see it in a Tory. But with Keir Starmer, he's pretending to be a socialist. He's pretending to want to have progressive policies, but he is just a wolf in sheep's clothing. So he's the bastard who pretends not to be a bastard. And they're even arguably even worse than the Tories. And a lot of people are waking up to that now, and you need to see it as well. And George Galloway looks likely to take this seat away from Labour. Sorry, got a bit confused there. They're so similar these days. It's very hard to get them conflated together. And it's just a case of knowing what's what, and you know how much Starmer has dragged Labour back to the right into neoliberal territory as well. Keith Mitchell, thanks a lot for joining us on the live stream tonight. Saying good evening, fingers, toes, and other appendages crossed. Are you hoping for a Galloway win? If you are, then well, that looks like this to be the case. Thanks a lot for all of your comments as well tonight. So I just want to go through a couple more candidates while we've got time before we go across the live footage. Obviously that's George Galloway there, who's expected to be winning, but just want to talk quickly about Mark Coleman, who's a very interesting independent candidate. So that's one of his clarion calls there. The people of Rochdale deserve a future. The Tories have put us on the road to climate hell, and Labour won't reverse. Mark Coleman is a retired Anglican priest. He's also a supporter of Just Stop Oil, which you might figured out by the orange on black kind of colour signatures there that are going on. He's an environmental protester. He has actually been imprisoned twice for environmental protests, and his candidacy is very curious in particular, and I'm going to give you a bit of an exclusive revelation here on My Left Eye very shortly before I explain this, because first of all, the Green Party candidate has had his support removed by the Green Party, even though he remains a member for Islamophobic comments. Just a sec, that's Guy Otten. So between, I think it was 2013 and 2015, he made some Islamophobic comments, and that is why the Green Party have removed support from Guy Otten, although he still remains a member of the party. Just a quick reminder about that from the Green Party side of things. But just going back to Mark Coleman. Okay, this is a first confession time on My Left Eye. I didn't want to say anything about this before we had the run-up to the Rochdale by-election in case of bias, but Mark Coleman is actually a personal friend of mine, and I'm a supporter of Just Stop Oil, and he's a great guy. He really is a wonderful fella. Obviously he supports environmental causes, i.e. No new fossil fuel licenses, but he also supports a ceasefire, an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, and a two-state solution. For me personally, I do strongly agree with what George Galloway says in terms of the situation in Gaza, just as much as I did about what he had to say about Iraq, which we're going to go on to as well. We're going to see some I've pulled up some old school clips of Galloway and how he handles the press, and I think that's absolutely amazing. Just on the environmental side, and I guess I have to admit I'm being slightly biased because obviously he's a personal friend of mine. I would have, if I lived in Rochdale, I would have been voting for Mark Coleman, but I didn't want to say anything about that before the vote. So just quickly want to go into Mark Coleman and sort of the way that the press have responded to him in the past. As I said, obviously he is a supporter of Just Stop Oil, and I just want to quickly show you this article before we go on to see some great clips of Galloway in how he's confronted mainstream media journalists. If you'll be so kind as to be patient. I know a lot of our viewers tonight are waiting for the results come through and hoping that Galloway comes through, but just very quickly about this. Bear with. Let's check you can see that. Okay. All right. Just move the answer out the way. There we go. There we go. There we go. Okay, so the Daily Mail had a hard time at Mark Coleman, who you can see on the right of the picture there. This is during a protest where he glued his hands to a rod outside an oil terminal in Essex, in Grays in Essex, and he got stick off the Daily Mail because he's got his hands glued down there, and he after you know a good while of having his hands glued down, he asked if they could give him a sip of water, which the police duly obliged with, and then the Daily Mail proceeded to release an article entitled "Water Way to Treat the Eco Menaces." Sorry, just bear with me, let me get my bearings. Policeman is seen helping Just Up Oil protester Vicar take a sip of drink after he glued both his hands to the road at fuel terminal as fury grows at UK woke bobbies. Obviously, the initial murmurings of this ridiculous culture war that we're going to be unfortunately faced with as things go along towards the next general election. But that's beside the point. Just wanted to remind you in terms of green issues, environmental issues, that Mark Coleman is really prepared to put his body on the line there, and I think that's amazing. Even though he's a personal friend of mine, in fact, Revelation. I was sat next to. That's not me on the left, but at one point I was sat next to Mark Coleman during this protest. In fact, you can see me over his left shoulder there after I've been arrested. That's another point, and there's some other shots there of Mark just after a lot of people, the only people that were left there glued on the road. Anyway, any road, you can, that's me there, that's me. Revelation time, Revelation, faceless channel, who is this guy? What does he do? Right, okay, so obviously, realistically, Mark Coleman's an outsider in this by-election, but it certainly is an interesting candidate. I think it's the first time that a Just Stop Oil supporter has stood as an environmental candidate in the UK now. I think that's certainly worth noting. So just back to some of the other candidates. If you'll be so kind as to bear with me. Right, let's have a look at some of Galloway's. Oh, sorry, just a quick mention. So obviously that was Guy Otten from the Green Party. Simon Danskuk also, just very, very quickly before we go on to some of the Galloway clips. In fact, there are 3 former Labour members standing in this by-election, which just adds to the sort of theatre, the drama that's been going on around it. And Simon here was actually the MP for Rochdale between 2010 and 2017. He's suspended by the party for sending some nefarious texts to a 17-year-old. And yeah, there you go. So just wanted to point out Simon there. He's an outsider as well, by the way, standing for the Reform Party now. Yeah, great move there. But that just goes to re-emphasise how closely tied the Tories and Labour are at the moment, that you're seeing former Labour members going to parties such as Reform. You know, you're seeing Lee Anderson move from Labour to the Tories, but then you're also seeing, including former Speaker of the House, going from the Tories to Labour. So, yeah, Burko. And other members as well. It just kind of goes to show how deeply integrated this neoliberal system is. But I'm sure all you fine socialists listening tonight are going to be aware of that. So solidarity to everyone listening tonight. Just want to catch up with a couple of comments before we quickly go to George Galloway's previous media performances. Keith Mitchell says, yeah, of course, George is the man I wish to see walking back into Parliament. However, I have seen how elections can be manipulated, so cautious to celebrate until the fat lady sings. Likewise. I've seen some mutterings on social media in the last 24 hours or so about the postal votes and such. Who knows, but fingers crossed it'll be mud in the eye for Labour and for Keir Starmer. Adimovic also comments, how long was he stuck to the road? He was stuck to the road for about about 2 hours, I think, in total. There's a very funny story behind that, actually. Just quickly before we go on, I know I keep saying we're doing this and then quickly and then going on. Sorry. Thanks a lot for bearing with me. But funny story. Shall I just bring the picture back up? One sec. No, not that one. The other Mark Coleman pic. Where is it? It's here somewhere. Anyway, doesn't matter. So, funny story. You would have seen one of the pictures in the article I showed you. There was a line of people, including Mark. The last lady on the end, who appeared to have a picture in the picture to have her hands glued to the road, actually didn't, and then she was the last one that the police came to. And when the police arrived, and I won't name her, but when the police arrived, she sort of lifted her hands off the floor and went, "Da-da!" Like, she was kidding all along. She didn't actually have her hands glued to the road. So just a bit of yeah, that was pretty funny to hear. Like I said, I was on that action in the article with Mark. I'd already been carted away by then, so I only heard about that retrospectively. Oh, it's a blank screen. We can't have a blank screen. Anyway, okay, quick comedy interlude before we go to George. Sorry, I just need to spend a penny. And this is Tide Hickey with his launch of BBC News.
Welcome back to BBC News, and we return now to our main story of Gaza's immoral war on Israel. Some shocking new footage has just been submitted to us, and with me now to analyse these harrowing images is Piers Murray. Piers, tell us what we're looking at here. Yes, indeed. Thank you, Alan. These images just into us from Tel Aviv, and we should warn viewers that they are particularly harrowing. We begin on this gentleman who's just out for a little ice skate, as you do, Alan, in the middle of town. He's had to abandon that now because of the bloody war, and he's forced into having a little sit. The photojournalist bravely swoops around. This is our key couple, Alan. This lady, that's a brand new jacket from Zara. She's willing to risk that in an impromptu game of hide-and-go-seek with her partner. This gentleman in the background is so distressed, he's taking a piss on his wife, Alan. Not to be outdone, this blonde-haired lady enters the scene, and she is so distressed, she actually takes a little shit. You can just see her there. But look at love finding a way, Alan. The hide-and-go-seek couple, in the midst of it all, right, in the middle of a war zone, they have noticed a shooting star. Oh, and a powerful scene of Israeli resilience there. As we cut back to the gentleman, we can see that in spite of being in a war zone, he still has time to actually film his girlfriend, which is lovely. We swoop around, and the ice skating, he's furious now at this point because he's paid for the hour. He still hasn't got on the rink.
Sure.
We cut back to, look at this cutesy moment here, Alan, right? Herself goes peekaboo, right? He goes boo and frightens the bejesus out of her. It's incredible. Like, this lady, she's in a war zone. It's harrowing stuff. You know what I mean? The human animals are out together, and yet she still finds time to do her yoga. Look at this. Downward facing dog, how are you? Wonderful stuff. This lady's a trooper, Alan, if ever I met one. she still also takes time to just make sure she's being filmed. Yes, you're on camera. And I just want to conclude, Alan, by saying we hear about Motaz. What I'd say there is Motaz Schmotaz. This is resilience. Yeah, this is finding a way. Yeah, this is the right side of history.
Sorry. It's just so...
Yeah, so excuse me, viewers, you know, tear my eye there. What somebody think of the poor Zionists? I mean, look at those people in plight there. Oh my goodness, what are we going to do? Oh, sorry, just wipe the tears away from my eyes. Oh no, they're clearly fascists, of course. So let's take a trip down memory lane now. George Galloway has obviously done some amazing appearances on the media, where he's obviously not been very outspoken against. He's been outspoken against various wars, as well as holding mainstream media hacks to account. So let's just take a quick look back at his appearance in front of Congress in America after the start of the Second Gulf War in Iraq at the turn of the millennium. We're going to start by seeing him sworn in, and then his amazing response to the very seats of government, which obviously started that unjust occupation. And now history has shown, obviously, Saddam Hussein did not have any weapons of mass destruction, as people were saying, contrary to what Colin Powell got up and said to kickstart this whole thing. So let's just see how Galloway got along there. Sorry for the brief delay in bringing you these clips, but thanks a lot for joining us tonight here on the My Left Eye live stream. We're waiting for the result. Don't worry, I've got the news open on another screen, so if anything does come up, we're going to go straight back to that and check out any declaration of results.
Demonstrated Vladimir Zhinovsky's dealing with machine import in phase 11. That drug also risks. This time I would ask you to rise and please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give before this subcommittee is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? We will be using a timing system today.
Senator, I am not now, nor have I ever been, an oil trader, and neither has anyone on my behalf. I have never seen a barrel of oil, owned one, bought one, sold one, and neither has anybody on my behalf.
Where they got money from. So, Mr. Galloway, you would have this committee believe that he designated representative.
He was an extremely wealthy businessman.
Sorry about the sound quality on the other microphones apart from Galloway's. It's just from the clip I downloaded, so apologies if you can't quite hear the questions that are being put to him, but I'm sure from his responses you can fill in the gaps.
I've met Saddam Hussein exactly the same number of times as Donald Rumsfeld met him. The difference is Donald Rumsfeld met him to sell him guns and to give him maps the better to target those guns. I met him to try and bring about an end to sanctions, suffering, and war, and on the second of the two occasions, I met him to try and persuade him to allow Dr. Hans Blix and the United Nations weapons inspectors back into the country.
You remember Hans Blix, of course, inspected Iraq and found that there were no weapons of mass destruction as described by America at the time. It's awful to believe that this was 20 years ago and still we see the same type of lies perpetuating within the US government and around the world as to these unreasonable and outright lies in terms of excuses for perpetuating war, the industrial military complex and all of these things that the capitalist system implements on countries all over the world, including, of course, Palestine.
And this
I gave my heart and soul to stop you committing the disaster that you did commit in invading Iraq. And I told the world that your case for the war was a pack of lies. Senator, this is the mother of all smokescreens. You are trying to divert attention from the crimes that you supported, from the theft of billions of dollars of Iraq's wealth. Have a look at the real oil for food scandal. Have a look at the 14 months you were in charge of Baghdad, the first 14 months, when $8.8 billion of Iraq...
Of course, it's always the case that countries like America seek to occupy countries with massive natural resources and, in this case, fossil fuels like oil, like gas. And it's no coincidence that Israel is occupying Palestine now, not just because of the collective punishment and what can only be described as apartheid, and dare I stick my neck out as far as to say ethnic cleansing that is happening in the excuse to just gain land, gain natural resources, to be able to build a canal that will be able to ship resources through at a much shorter distance, as well as oil, gas and coal, as we see the last grasps of late-stage capitalism trying to get hold of the world's resources and just profit from so much destruction and death, and under the absolute worst excuses that you can imagine, under absolutely horrifying and soulless excuses, and the amount of lies and misrepresentation that we're seeing in this day and age is exactly the same as it was back then when the United States of America were occupying Iraq for their natural resources as well. And it is just history repeating and repeating and repeating. But the people now are choosing to rise up, and we are seeing these protests going on and on every weekend in London, in Manchester, in Birmingham, in Leeds, in Ireland, in Scotland, in countries all over the world, not just in the UK, but in America, in every state that you could imagine, in every major city across the world. People are rising up and calling for a ceasefire in Gaza, and that's the difference. This will be a relentless protest, and as long as we keep our voices heard, then we can make a difference. And we're going to see this here tonight at this by-election in Rochdale, which is my point. We're going to see that people actually can make a difference, and people do actually care about the sociological problems that exist globally, and people are going to stand up and say that they've had enough. They're going to stand up and say enough war, enough occupation, enough genocide. And if, as is expected, Galloway is going to get in tonight, then that is not just politically going to be mud in the face for Keir Starmer, but across the world it's going to show people that you cannot do this, you cannot get away with this, because frankly it is fascism, and we are not going to tolerate that as a society globally. And it's elections like this that really actually count. These are the initial sort of sparks that will light the tinderbox across elections all across the world, that will hopefully help people stand up to the right wing and show people that they do have a choice. Like in America, they have the Republican or Democrats. Over here in Britain, as I said earlier, it's widely conceived that it's either a choice between Tory or Labour, but you've got to show people that we do have a choice, and our vote is our choice, and one person is one vote, and that is what counts, and that is what matters. And if people collectively use their votes together, then we really can make a difference.
Wealth went missing on your watch.
Run over for
Have
now.
a look at the real scandal breaking in the newspapers today, revealed in the earlier testimony in this committee, that the biggest sanctions busters were not me or Russian politicians or French politicians. The real sanctions busters were your own companies with the connivance of your own government.
Thank you, Mr. Galloway.
So I opposed this program with all my heart. Not because Saddam was getting kickbacks from it, and I don't know when it's alleged these kickbacks started. Not because some individuals were getting rich doing business with Iraq under it, but because it was a murderous policy of killing huge numbers of Iraqis. That's what troubles me. That's what troubles me.
And it was 2 million in the end. A staggering number. 2 million. 2 million Iraqis. However, what is scary, what is terrifying, is that the rate of deaths, the rate of killing, the rate of murder that is going on in Palestine far exceeds that of previous wars in Iraq, in Iran and Afghanistan, especially in terms of the journalistic population. And we're already, even just 5 months in to the escalation of this conflict, seeing that records that were set in Vietnam and even World War II are being broken in terms of proportion of journalists who are being killed, for example. Over half of the casualties and deaths are women and children in this. And at the moment, it's over 30,000 deaths in just 5 months, but that does not count people who are left in the rubble and who have died and have not been identified yet, which is also terrifying. So let's see Galloway's post-Congress appearance press conference before we move on to a couple more clips. Just keeping my eye on the news, no result as of yet coming through. Thanks a lot for joining us on the Let's Lie live stream. If you've not done already, please do subscribe, hit all the buttons and all of that jazz. Please do consider also becoming a member of the channel. For just the price of a coffee per month, you can enjoy a lot of exclusive perks, so please do check out the links in the channel description for those.
That were put together after the fall. But to the people watching it, I thought that I established what I intended to establish, and namely that the rest of the world doesn't see things the way they are seen from inside the bubble of the neocon right-wing Republican power here in Washington, that most people think the real villains of the peace on Iraq are not Kofi Annan, me, or President Chirac, but here in Washington.
This wasn't a wrestling match. I had one goal in this, and that was to simply make a record. And I think we did that. I think that Mr. Galloway's credibility is certainly very, very suspect. And if, in fact, he lied to this committee, then there'll have to be consequences to that.
Well, he didn't lie on that. Obviously, as time has told, everything he said was the exact truth, and he's been very outspoken on a lot of conflicts, as I said. So just to go on to another clip where he directly confronts mainstream media. This is just following one of his other victories at what am I on about? At Bethnal Green and Bow, when he won the seat in Bethnal Green and Bow. I was going to say Baton Spen then. That was another by-election, which obviously wasn't as exciting as this one, but recently. So no, Bethnal Green and Bow, and of course he was confronted by Paxman then, and Paxman, oh God, by all means did he not go about this completely the wrong way, and Galloway, as you're going to see, was completely within his rights to confront the method of questioning to Paxman. Basically, just, Paxman opens with this race baiting crap, and when he was still presenter of Newsnight, for God's sake, which just goes to, ridiculous how these kind of tropes manage to filter the way into the mainstream media, but we all know why that is. Let's just take a quick trip down memory lane with that one.
Well, we're joined now from his count in Bethnal Green and Bow by George Galloway. Mr. Galloway, are you proud of having got rid of one of the very few black women in Parliament?
What a preposterous question. I know it's very late in the night, but wouldn't you be better by starting by congratulating me for one of the most sensational election results in modern history?
Are you proud of having got rid of one of the very few black women in Parliament?
I'm not, Jeremy, move on to your next question.
But you're not answering that one.
No, because I don't believe that people get elected because of the colour of their skin. I believe people get elected because of their record and because of their policies.
I mean, can you believe that? That was his opening gambit, his opening question. And of course, yeah, you'd like to think that people get elected because of the policies, not because of the colour of the skin. But for Jeremy Paxman just to openly fall into that straight away, like he's, you know, he doesn't even congratulate him for winning the seat, and just it's so pompous, so ridiculous. These loaded questions that Paxman came out with back then, and of course we've still got shit media now. Back then, at least, we didn't have the likes of GB News and Talk TV and all of this tripe. But for this to come up on the BBC, it's just, you know, reprehensible.
So move on to your next question.
Are you
because
proud?
I've got a lot of people who want to speak to me.
If you
ask that question again, I'm going. I warn you now.
Don't try and threaten me, Mr. Galloway, please.
You're the one who's trying to badger me.
I'm not trying to badger you. I'm merely asking you whether you're proud of having driven out of Parliament one of the very few black women there, a woman you accused of having on her conscience the deaths of 100,000 people.
Oh, well, there's no doubt about that one. There's absolutely no doubt that all those new Labour MPs who voted for Mr. Blair and Mr. Bush's war have on their hands the blood of 100,000 people in Iraq, many of them British soldiers, many of them American soldiers, most...
So why didn't Paxman ask, are you pleased to have deposed a warmonger, as opposed to instantly race baiting and treating race like a political football, referring to the colour of the prior sitting member's skin? That's absolutely ridiculous. That in itself is obviously race baiting and important for the Iraq occupation. Obviously, she would have many deaths on her conscience. She has got blood on her hands, and that needs calling out. And yeah, Galloway was clearly open to calling that out. The colour of her skin doesn't come into it at all, but how she voted and how she acts as a politician clearly is.
Most of them Iraqis, and that's a more important issue than the colour of her skin.
Yes, because you then went on to say, including a lot of women who had blacker faces than her.
Absolutely right, absolutely right. So don't try and tell me that I should feel guilty about one of the most sensational election results in modern electoral history because the person I
defeated Mr. Galloway, that Nick Rainsford had you to a T when he said you were a demagogue.
I'm sorry?
Nick Rainsford. You know who
Who?
I mean, Nick Rainsford, Labour MP?
No,
you've never heard of him?
I've never heard of Nick.
Who? Nick Rainsford? Anyone? Come on, I'll give you 5 seconds in the chat. Nick Rainsford. Anyone? I'm getting crickets. Yep. No. No.
Rainsford, no.
What else haven't you heard of?
Well, I've been in Parliament a long time.
He was a parliamentary colleague of yours until very recently.
Most of them just blend one into the other, Jeremy. They're largely a spineless, supine bunch.
Have you?
Well, George, it's not really changed much in the last 20 years either. Of course, they do just blend into one neoliberal, spineless bunch these days, which is obviously unfortunate. And well, he might give a kick to that tonight. Let's see.
I heard of Tony Banks.
Yes, I have. Yes.
Right, Tony Banks was sitting here 5 minutes ago, and he said that you were behaving inexcusably. You had deliberately chosen to go to that part of London and to exploit the latent racial tensions there.
But you are actually conducting one of the even by your standards, one of the most absurd interviews I have ever participated in. I have just won an election. Can you find it within yourself to
Yeah, Ordinal Father. You're right there, yeah. Paxman's very angry at this, and half the heroes are sheepdogs for the establishment. I mean, just look at him though. He just thinks the level of outrage will somehow compensate for the lack of professional integrity. In this case, asking such ridiculous questions, and well, have things really changed in the last nearly 20 years since this interview was conducted? I don't think so. You know, when you look at the likes of how question time is these days, for example, the likes of Keir Burley, who think that their personal outrage somehow compensates for the facts, or on LBC, people like Nick Ferrari et al. Yeah. What can you say? What can you say? Thanks a lot for joining us as well. Thanks a lot for joining the chat. If you want your message or question to get to the top of the chat, please do use super chats, which are now enabled. Much appreciated in helping to contribute towards the channel. Also, we do have a Buy Me a Coffee page if you want to check that out in the channel description, or you might consider joining the channel for just the price of a coffee. Every month you'll get exclusive videos. You'll get early viewings on other videos and also exclusive live streams as well. So please do consider contributing to the channel if you can. Thanks a lot for listening tonight.
Recognise that fact, to recognise the fact that the people of Bethnal Green and Bow chose me this evening.
Oh, we recognise it.
Why are you insulting them?
I'm not insulting them.
Yes,
I'm not insulting you.
You are insulting them. They chose me just a few minutes ago. Can't you find it within yourself even to congratulate me on this victory?
Congratulations, Mr.
Thank
Galloway.
you very much indeed.
How do you propose to
Thank
use
you very
your
much
time?
indeed.
Oh, I see. It's another occasion of you not wanting to talk to someone who doesn't agree with you.
Actually, Jeremy.
All right.
That's
David
how you
Larry,
do
what
it.
do you make of Mr. Galloway?
Just straight away, just turns away to some other guests. Yeah, that's enough. That's enough. That's your lot, Paxman. There you go. Here's another one where he was confronted about. Basically, it was Lebanon kicking the shit out of Israel back in the day when they were trying to occupy Lebanon, and they got their arse handed to them. So we'll just quickly take a look at that before we go over to the live stream of BBC News and see if we're getting any closer to the results from tonight's Rochdale by-election as we go over George Galloway's previous exploits on MSM.
Joining me now is a man not known for sitting on the fence. He passionately opposed the invasion of Iraq, and now he feels that Hezbollah is justified in attacking Israel. The Respect MP for Bethnal Green is in our central London studio. A very good evening, good morning rather, to you, Mr. Galloway. How do you justify your support for Hezbollah and its leader, Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah?
A preposterous way to introduce an item, and what a preposterous first question. 24 years ago, on the day my daughter was born, and I've just celebrated her 24th birthday, I had to dash to the maternity hospital to see her given birth from a mass demonstration in London against the Israeli invasion and occupation of Lebanon. Israel has been invading and occupying Lebanon all of my 24-year-old daughter's life. The Hezbollah are a part of the Lebanese national resistance who are trying to drive, having successfully driven most Israelis from their land in 2000, Israel from the rest of their land, and to get back those thousands of Lebanese prisoners who were kidnapped by Israel under the terms of their illegal occupation of Lebanon.
Unless we forget, this is still ongoing. Not only are Israel continuing to occupy and inflict collective punishment on Palestinians, they've also started to attack Lebanon as well under this ridiculous facade of Hamas bases being there, the same as they do with hospitals, the same as they do with universities, of which there are none left in Palestine, by the way. But every death that they inflict in their collective punishment is under the excuse of trying to kill Hamas. And this just doesn't wash. It just doesn't wash. And this is only going to escalate, and we're probably going to see this escalate into Egypt as well. But there's no Hamas in Lebanon.
It's Israel that's invading Lebanon. It's Israel that's attacking Lebanon, not Lebanon that's attacking Israel.
Isn't it crazy that as old as this interview is, it could have been recorded just yesterday, couldn't it? Really?
We've just been carrying a report of 10 Israeli soldiers on the border getting ready to invade Lebanon, and you ask us to mourn that operation as if it were some kind of war crime. Israel is invading Lebanon and has killed 30 times more Lebanese civilians than have died in Israel. So it's you who should be justifying the evident bias which is written on every line on your face and is in every nuance of your voice and is loaded in every question that you ask.
Right, you put your finger on the button though, didn't you, when you said that Hezbollah was set up back in the 1980s in order to remove every Israeli soldier from Lebanese soil. As you said, it achieved that in 2000.
No, it didn't.
This is a setback.
No, it didn't. It didn't. This is a key point that you're concealing from your viewers. Israel was forced out of most of the south of Lebanon in 2000. It still occupies a part of Lebanon since 2000.
The Shebab Farms area, which is subject to this latest UN draft resolution.
Thousands of Lebanese prisoners have been kidnapped by Israel. Hezbollah
I spoke
and the
just a moment
Lebanese
ago to the
want
Israeli
them to
Foreign
be
Ministry
released.
spokesman who said that the 3 Lebanese who have been captured, perhaps you'd like to use that word, have been before a judge
These are
and
not
been
the
through a
prisoners.
court of law.
Oh, please, have a slightly longer memory than 4 weeks. I'm talking about the thousands of prisoners taken during the 18 years of Israeli occupation, illegal occupation of South Lebanon. These are the prisoners that have to be released in exchange for the Israeli soldiers that were captured at the beginning of this wave of the crisis.
Hostage negotiations. Ring a bell? Does that ring a bell? Yeah. It could have been recorded yesterday.
Can I ask you about a report that's in today's Sunday Telegraph, which showed that Iran has given Hezbollah long-range missiles capable of targeting any part of Israel. Iran, according to this Iranian MP who helped found Hezbollah, has also said that Iran has given the authorization to target Tel Aviv. Can you blame Israel for wanting to destroy those missiles?
This is preposterous. America has given Israel missiles that can target not just every city in Lebanon, but every city in the Arab and Muslim world, including Iran. Why should America be allowed to give long-range missiles to Israel, including hundreds of nuclear missiles, but Iran is not allowed to give missiles?
Because it's given it to a terrorist organisation.
But they're not a terrorist organisation. Only in the mind of Rupert Murdoch's Sky and the Times and the Sun and the News of the World.
I'm going to stop you there, Mr. Galloway. Prescribed terrorist organisations. One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. We know that perfectly well. In most people's eyes, they are deemed to be. They had a choice, didn't they? Let's understand this. They had a choice, like the IRA, to take on politics.
Listen, Anna.
I'm saying they had a choice to absorb the idea of politics. They've got 2 Hezbollah cabinet ministers.
Anna, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. You are totally wrong in saying that in most people's eyes, Hezbollah are terrorists. In most people's eyes, Israel is a terrorist state. It's the fact that you cannot comprehend that fact that leads to the bias which runs through all of your reporting and every question that you've asked me in this interview.
Can I ask you one question? I was relating to the IRA and Sinn Féin. They have decided to embrace politics. Hezbollah.
What in the bloody hell has that got to do with it? Seriously, this is pathetic. This is pathetic from the interviewer. Let's see where she's going to try and go with this, but Oh my goodness.
Had the chance to embrace politics. They've already got two cabinet ministers. They're well respected in the south.
In politics. They are.
That's what I'm saying. If you listen to me, I'm saying they've got two cabinet ministers already. They had a chance to do that. Why did they need to capture and kill Israeli soldiers on the border? Surely that sets back their ambitions to be a political force inside a democratic Lebanon.
Look, because Israel occupies their country and holds thousands of their compatriots as kidnapped hostages in their dungeons. It's really very simple, except if you think only in a clock that goes back 4 weeks. If you know, and you're old enough to know better, that this origins of this conflict are not 4 weeks or 4 years or 14 years, but are decades old. You want people to think that the crisis started when the clock started ticking on Sky News.
No, I don't
the people in Lebanon
I want
know
to ask you
differently.
I want to ask you one final question. Do you think that the 4 weeks that we've seen, as you mentioned, the 26 days of this crisis, has set back Hezbollah's ambition?
Do you notice how she ignores every answer that he gives and then just proceeds to go, oh, just let me ask you this, just let me ask you this. Obviously the producers, directors, whatever, are feeding into her ear throughout the whole process. So try and get him with this, try and get him with that. That's the way the mainstream media works. She's not going to acknowledge any rebuttal that Galloway presents. She's just going to move on to the next ridiculous question, which is loaded as fuck, and try and imply something with it within the question, which is obviously far strong and ridiculous, but it just goes on and on and on.
Ambitions. Not only are Israeli soldiers now over the border. Let me finish. Would you mind letting me finish, please? Not only are Israeli soldiers over the border in sizable numbers, but also their claims to be a good political organisation to help a democratic Lebanese government with the Syrians who've also now left an independent state. That has also come to blows as well.
What a silly question. What a silly person you are. Hezbollah is winning the war. You can see it on the other half of the screen.
They're kicking Israel's asses.
Hezbollah is more popular today.
That was not my question.
Hezbollah is more popular today in Lebanon, amongst Christians, amongst Sunnis, amongst Shiites, amongst all Arabs, amongst all Muslims, than it has ever been. It's Israel who's lost the war, and Bush and Blair, for politically organising the war, who've lost politically. This is a defeat for Bush and Blair and Israel. Everybody but you can see it.
Let me separate out that.
Oh, we can't have that. Quick, come in with a really, pertinent question that you might think sounds intelligent, but is actually just a lot of horse shit. Quick, I'm getting voices in my ear. What can we do? What can we do? We can't have this person speaking the truth that you can stand up to this oppressive occupation. We can't have that, can we? Of course not.
Question then. Is it a setback, given that Hezbollah was set up in order to get Israeli soldiers off Lebanese soil, that there are now more Israeli soldiers on Lebanese soil than there were 26 days ago?
Well, they seem to be getting a bloody good hiding on the other half of the screen that I'm watching. Maybe you can't see it, but I'm watching them getting a bloody good hiding in the war. So if that's a success, I'm not sure what a failure would look like. The reality is that this conflict will go on. The United Nations resolution solves nothing, gives Lebanon nothing, gives the prisoners in Israeli dungeons nothing, and as Anne Clewid, my erstwhile colleague, was just saying, Israel has just kidnapped even more Palestinian politicians, cabinet...
And how right was he? We're here in 2024, and the things that he was saying just there in those comments have completely rung true today. This is obviously still going on. The occupation is still going on, and you know, it spelled it out perfectly there, exactly how things would follow.
Ministers, members of parliament, and thousands of others held in Israeli dungeons, and this war will continue until the overall settlement is reached. That settlement must mean Israeli withdrawal from all occupied territory that it currently holds since the war in 1967, the release of all political prisoners, and a state for the Palestinians with East Jerusalem as its capital. No justice, no peace, You're not going out of business as a newscaster in Jerusalem anytime soon, believe me.
Well, yeah, again, obviously the war's been perpetuating there ever since Galloway made those statements. We're going to go across to BBC News. Hopefully we're going to have an announcement soon about the result of the by-election, but obviously it remains suspended in the air. We're going to go across to the BBC shortly. There's just a minute left on this clip. I'm going to play that before we go across and see what the latest is from the count.
Well, as usual, you have prompted a huge email response, both for and against you, Mr. Galloway, so we'll leave it there. I have to say that some people might find it offensive when more families are mourning their dead to hear you say that it was a bloody good hiding. So
you don't give a damn. You don't even know about the Palestinian families. You don't even know that they exist. Tell me the name of one member of the 7 members of the same family slaughtered on the beach in Gaza by an Israeli warship. You don't even know their name, but you know the name of every Israeli soldier who's been taken prisoner in this conflict, because you believe, whether you know it or not, that Israeli blood is more valuable than the blood of Lebanese or Palestinians. That's the truth, and the discerning of your viewers already know it.
And what's the mainstream media adage that we still get these days? Palestinians died and Israelis were killed by, and it still goes on today. It's unfortunate to see. I just need you to bear with me for a few moments if you can. Just need to leave the desk for a couple of minutes. We're going to nip back into Keir Starmer's fondue lounge, which regular viewers will be familiar with, just while I nip outside for a minute or two. Please do bear with, and then we'll go across to the live footage. We should be expecting a result pretty soon. Thanks a lot for staying with us on the My Left Eye late night live stream. First time we've done live stream after midnight. Thanks a lot for being here. If you've not done so already, please do hit the subscribe, notification buttons, and all of the rest of that jazz. And please do consider joining us as a member. You can get exclusive emojis on the live stream, which you're very free to use, as well as other exclusive perks, early viewings, exclusive videos, and a whole bunch more. So please do consider that. It's just the price of a coffee a month, but it'll go a long way to helping to support the channel. And on that note, we're going to go over to Keith and check out the latest from the Fondue Lounge. patience. Thanks for your patience, everyone. We'll go across to the Beeb now and see what's happening. Bear with, bear with. Okay, here we go. It's not going to be hours away. See what the latest is. That's the list of candidates. Okay, yeah, let's have a quick look. Why not? Official monster raving loony candidate at the Count Centre. Raving rodent Subordner and his supporters are at the Count Centre in Rochdale. Subordner, the official monster raving loony party candidate, said that as MP he would campaign for the introduction of the 99p coin, as well as for all roundabouts to have fairground carousels in the middle. What's actually weird is that some former monster raving loony policies have actually been put into law now through the years, so you never know. You never know. You might have to. You might be able to look forward to a 99p coin. Okay, there's Tice, Richard Tice, leader of Reform, who obviously get a lot more mainstream media coverage than they deserve, the far-right group. So it says he's been speaking to the Beeb, during which he claimed the Rochdale by-election was marred by intimidation on the campaign trail. Intimidation. Is that following down the same lines as these so-called threats that were made outside the Houses of Parliament last week, that were just peaceful protesters? So Ty says there's questions over whether this was a free and fair election because of death threats, racial abuse and violence he alleges his party's candidate and supporters experienced. There was actually, it was reported that there was a death threat made against the Reform candidate, Simon Donsuck, one of the former Labour members, as we mentioned earlier. That was reported yesterday. Not sure about the circumstances around that, but an alleged death threat apparently was made. But it says he did not specifically accuse any particular candidate or campaign of abusive behaviour, but says his party drafted in security because they were so concerned about the situation. Tice says the conduct on the campaign trail has been, quote, like what you see in a failed state, adding the result is irrelevant. It is the implications for our democracy. It's a bit rich coming from a Tory. I'm not going to go into what Farage says. I don't think any of our viewers tonight will give, if you'll pardon my language, two wet shits about what Nigel Farage has got to say about all this hoo-ha. So turnout figures have been announced there. That's a bit of an update for you there. 39.7%, quite low. Obviously, by-elections are usually a lower turnout than general elections, but that's still quite a bit higher than recent by-elections in Kingswood, for example, where we saw with other by-elections that it wasn't such that people were turning out to vote for Labour, more that people who used to vote for Tories stayed at home, and no one was really falling out of the door to go and vote for Keith's candidate. Something about pies. Why not? So let's just go to live footage now. Let's turn that down there. So the count's still going on. we should be expecting a result fairly soon. Okay, we'll keep our eye on things just there for the moment. No result as of yet, expected very soon, but with it being quite a lowish turnout, that should mean that it's not going to be too late for the result to be announced. Yeah, VC Vascud, only 39% turned up, but as I said, there normally a much lower turnout in by-elections than in general elections. But how are you feeling about the result tonight as well? Please do let us know in the chat who you would have voted for if you were in Rochdale. If you live in Rochdale, yeah, please do let us know how you voted as well, or what your thoughts are surrounding this by-election. Okay, they got Kinnock up now. Let's see what Kinnock's got to say about all this. Okay, so obviously the former MP Tony Lloyd died, which is why Azhar Ali then came in, and for his comments, which only kind of reiterated reports made in the Washington Post that Israel had prior attacks of the Hamas attacks, how much prior knowledge they did or didn't have remains to be seen, seems to be a factor. However, as is the case under Starmer's Labour, these kind of comments have been conflated with anti-Semitism. Unfortunately, that's not true from what I know. He didn't say anything about Jews, about Jewish people. It was purely about Israel's tactics in this occupation. So that's why Azhar Ali was suspended by the Labour Party. Obviously, we've seen this so many times. In fact, more Jewish people have been expelled from the Labour Party under Keir Starmer than ever before, and they try to tell you that Jeremy Corbyn's Labour was anti-Semitic. Of course, that turned out to be a complete scam. In fact, only 2 out of over 500,000 members ever had proceedings against them for cases of anti-Semitism, and it was all conflated by the media. So let's just go on with the rest of the live footage. Let's skip forward. I think this, just going off the colour of the rosettes there, this could be the Reform candidate. And like you might have seen in the video that we put out yesterday, yeah, it was yesterday now, about Galloway being odds-on winner. It looked like Reform and Labour were in the same odds, so potentially, yeah, you could see Labour coming third, not just second after Galloway, which is kind of, oh, well, what to make of that, because obviously Reform are a right-wing party, very clearly, but for them to come second, yeah, that would be something. That would be something, but wait to see.
To voice, be a voice of the people, and you know, air my concerns, because I feel.
Sorry, that was muted there. Thanks a lot, Organ the Bold, for pointing out. There was no sound there. Thanks a lot. That was on mute. Apologies.
That, you know, it's just same old routine, and I wanted to be a breath of fresh air and put my points across that basically what our town feels and what the, you know, on a bigger stage our nation feels, you know, and I wanted to be the frontman of that for our town, Rochdale, and I feel we've achieved that in 4 weeks. Yeah.
Can't believe this is the actual candidate. It just looks like they've pulled someone out of a frigging pub. But that's the state of Reform, you know. I mean, it's an absolute bloody shambles, isn't it? It's just all right-wing white gammons, blah, blah, blah. Geez, this is the actual candidate. And he's talking like you just turned round to someone in a pub and asked them what they think about X, Y, Z. But not that they know about what they're talking about either. Just, I don't know, just weird. Who's voting for these?
You can inspire people in other parts of the country to do similar?
I hope so. I hope people from each town stand up and make the sound accountable, and hopefully the communities back them like Rochdale's done today with me, and like I say, I feel very humble, and I feel, you know, we
sorry about the buffering.
Can hopefully achieve something if people stand up for what they believe in, and local people back them instead of just.
I've just paused it there. Sorry about the buffering. All he keeps saying is local people, what they believe in. Thank you, local people, what they believe in, local people. And in case you forgot, it's all about what they believe in. Christ. Skip it along. Skip it along.
People across the country, and thousands of people in Rochdale are currently experiencing. And so George, I think, is offering hope to those people, but also thousands of people in Rochdale and millions all over the country are also concerned about international policy as well. And the fact is that our government and the main opposition party is actually supporting massacres of Palestinian innocent Palestinian people. People are absolutely outraged by this, and they want to see people speaking out against it. And George Galloway and the Workers' Party is doing just that.
Some of the other parties think that the campaign here has been pretty toxic. To
So sorry about the buffering.
be honest,
Please bear
and
with.
they lay the blame for that at George Galloway's door.
Well, I mean, they would do, wouldn't they? But it's absolutely not. I mean, we have fought, George Galloway's fought, the Workers' Party has fought an incredibly positive campaign. We're speaking out for peace, we're speaking out against war, we're calling for a ceasefire in Gaza, we're speaking out for an economic policy that actually supports.
Yeah, Ogham the Bold, local shops for local people. You're right there, that's pretty much all I was saying. Thanks a lot for all of your comments. If you want your comments to get to the top of the chat, or you've got a pertinent question or point, please do consider using Super Chats. That's a great way to help support the channel. Thanks a lot for joining us on the live stream tonight. You can also check out our description to find other ways to support the channel. Thanks a lot for being here. You can also use our super stickers if you want to become a member of the channel. You can use our exclusive static emojis as well, and we're very grateful for you all being here tonight. Thanks a lot for your support. Please do continue to support the channel. Solidarity.
Ordinary working class people in this country, gives people hope. You know, let's address the housing crisis. Let's address the collapse in our public services. Let's deal with the destruction of our infrastructure. You know, all these things are possible. It just takes political will to bring about a good society. None of the political parties are offering that. What are the political parties offering? And both Labour and the Conservative are offering the same thing. I mean, Labour's saying that, you know, there'll be no public ownership of our utilities, so they're quite happy to sit back and allow public utilities to rip off consumers. I mean, look, you know, British Gas profits have increased by nearly tenfold, and you know, millions of people are struggling to pay their energy bills. What an absolute disgrace! What an outrage!
It is a disgrace and it is an outrage. And even Starmer has thrown his 28 billion green pledge out of the window. Renewables will be so much cheaper for people. Not only do we have to deal with the bloody climate crisis, but millions and millions of British families and British people are under the burden of fossil fuel companies, and they're making hand over fist record profits while people are struggling, and they still try and suppress the avenues of having cheaper, cleaner energy for everybody. And renewable energy will be like 7 to 9 times cheaper than what we face at the moment, but that means less private profit, of course. So that's why there's such hesitancy from the powers that be to implement this, and it's disgusting. It's really got to stop, and we have to do it very, very quickly. Otherwise, we really do face global ecological disaster, and the clock's ticking. The clock's ticking.
That Mr. Galloway has won, but what I actually want to do, we just put out on socials a statement which I think is important for viewers, listeners, and indeed the British electorate to understand.
Where's Tice now? And it's amazing how much the mainstream media has time for Richard Tice. You know, even though they don't have any MPs, they certainly have a lot more time for people like Richard Tice than they do for the Green Party, who have one more MP than he does, you know, by default, having 0. But he gets a lot of light now, and maybe that's one of the reasons that the Reform Party might look at becoming second or third in this election. Which makes you beg the question as to whether the mainstream media are doing the job properly and giving a platform to these kind of people.
Death threats. We've had to remove and relocate our staff. We've been refused entry into hustings in council.
A bunch of racists get some death threats now and then. How sensational. This is sensational news. I've just muted Tice there. But it's probably not difficult to see why people might give the Reform Party, a hard right party, a difficult time. I'm not saying that you should be making death threats. I'm not condoning that by any means. But that people should be severely disgruntled just goes to show. What's this appearing on the right now? Is the results expected shortly? Hold on.
Polling stations, intimidation. I'm concerned about also the size of the
Is this a returning
postal
officer?
vote, which has dramatically increased from 14,000 to 23,000 or so in just 4 years. Really?
I might be
What
getting
does that tell
premature,
us?
but this could be it.
I mean,
Hang on, I am indeed.
Yeah.
This by-election needs to act as a serious wake-up call to the whole British people. We're supposed to be a beacon of democracy, but I'm questioning that. Unless something dramatic changes, the reality is this scene will be repeated in dozens of constituencies at the general election, and we face, by Christmas, the prospect of numerous extremist, anti-Semitic lawmakers.
Oh, it's going off on one now, so I'm just going to mute that. Yeah, Tice is going off on one. This could be the result coming in very shortly. Of course. Yeah, we're not going to go down that road of extremists and anti-Semitic allegations. We all know what bullshit that is, and how unfortunately so many politicians are using race as a political football these days. We're not going to go along with what Tice is saying. Odd and all, Father, yeah, don't judge these people by what they say, but by what they do, of course. And so many politicians are culpable to that at the moment. We see massive U-turns. If we have to keep going back to Keir Starmer's Labour, for example, you'll remember his 10 pledges that he used to gain leadership of the Labour Party, and since then they've been trashed, they've been thrown under the bus, and he's gone down the right-wing neoliberal path, of course. Yeah, thanks a lot. It's great to see so many comments coming in tonight. If you've got a very pertinent point, please do consider using our super chats, or you can also use our super stickers. If you'd like to consider joining us as a member as well, you'll get a lot of exclusive perks, including static emojis, which you can use in the chat as well. So thanks a lot, everyone, for being here tonight, and the result is expected shortly, as you can see there. Who's this on the right hand side? Just quickly going through things. I don't know what all that's about. The turnout result, as you can see there, just under 40%. But let's see what the result's going to be. Anyway, it's Ty's finished now. Come on, can they not move on to something else? I'd rather be in Keith's fondue lounge.
Keep my team safe.
Okay. It seems to me a little bit like you're distracting away from the fact of this by-election, that your candidate has not performed well, and, you know...
It looks like we managed to skip the bullshit.
It's been won by someone that you fundamentally dislike politically. You're saying that's not the case?
No, it's not the case at all. The reality is no one's done well except Mr. Galloway. But the implications for our democracy are very serious indeed. Is that really how we want our by-elections conducted? Is that how we want our general election conducted? These are serious questions for people. I'm just putting out there what we've experienced. Other people may disagree. But I'm telling you, this is what's happened on the ground here in Rochdale. And how can you run a proper campaign like that? This is the worst I've ever experienced in my political life. Some of my team have been in politics 30 years. They've never seen anything like it.
I think you're starting to see the murmurings of this culture war and the xenophobia that the right-wing parties are trying to drum up before the next election, of course, with the Tories stop the boats policy and all the rest of it, and the so-called war on woke, the culture war, the phony culture war that they're trying to drum up, and Tice is obviously playing into that as well.
when Labour suspended their candidate. What news?
Just skipping forward now. Sorry about the buffering, everyone.
Set of local circumstances here to do with the dropping of the Labour candidate and the fact that
talk about Azhar Ali.
George Galloway is this pretty formidable campaigner and has done this kind of thing before.
And I assume that Downing Street will probably be breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief, because the last couple of by-elections, all the media focus has been on the Tory party because they lost them to Labour.
Yeah, that's right. Although the Conservative candidate, by all accounts, has not done very well here either. I suppose the main concern for the Conservatives in a place like this is that Reform UK performed particularly well. Lots of concern within the Tory party.
I would assume the main concern would be well, Galloway's going to do. He's probably going to take the seat. Or they'd be worried about reform in this seat in particular. It's ridiculous.
Comments that a lot of people consider to be Islamophobic. He has said that he doesn't believe that is the case, and some people suggest now that he might ultimately join Reform UK. No sign of that quite yet, but yeah, the fact that Reform don't appear to have polled particularly well here. We'll wait and see when the result eventually comes. We'll be a bit of a sigh of relief for Downing Street, but I think all of the parties will have to address some of the concerns raised by the leader of Richard Tice about what this says about the state of our democracy, whether campaigns like this need to be better policed. We had an announcement from the government.
I don't know what they're going to start getting away with here, but the main thing is this is the first clear sign of the clarion call of no ceasefire, no vote. Let's remind ourselves that the former Labour MP Tony Lloyd, who died, which triggered this by-election, abstained on the ceasefire.
The way it is interacting with politics is something that we'll be talking about for some time.
Yeah, and of course, with the
And
general election campaign,
Labour and Starmer did in the House of Commons last week was an absolute affront to democracy. So I think it's a bit rich for the BBC here to try and make out that democratic processes weren't followed, and they just seem to be towing Richard Tice's line here, which is kind of alarming when you think about it. But the real conflict with democracy surely came in the House of Commons last week, when we saw Keir Starmer making whatever threats he made to the Speaker of the House to put through Labour's amendment without a vote, totally hijacking the Scottish National Party's opposition day. And if Labour was so concerned about a ceasefire in Gaza, they would have put up their own opposition day a lot sooner, as I'm sure that you're aware. However, what's pertinent in that is that they didn't want the SNP motion going through, which clearly called out Israel's collective punishment of Palestinians, and that Keir Starmer could not take, nor could the Israel lobbyists. Let's not forget, Keir Starmer received £50,000 from Israel lobbyists during his election campaign when he was trying to become leader of the Labour Party, and he's an open Zionist, and of course lobbyists couldn't really have a motion going through where the collective punishment of Palestinians was acknowledged by the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So that's the main reason why those events unfolded. And if you do join the channel on a membership, you can see our analysis of the last PMQs, in which a lot of that came to light, including the fact that Lindsay Hoyle tried to keep his head down throughout the whole proceedings and just introduced the next speaker and didn't stand up to intervene, despite this childish schoolboy type exchange between Sunak and Starmer, which was just more evidence of the increasingly embarrassing fashion or pantomime in which our so-called elected representatives supposed to hold each other to account. So let's just go back to the live coverage as we expect the result of the by-election shortly. Thanks a lot for joining us on the live stream. Please do subscribe, hit the thumbs up button if you've not done so already. Thanks a lot for your comments. If you want your comments to get to the top of the chat, please do consider using our super chats, which are now live.
Yeah, people do really care about what is happening in their immediate neighbourhood and what the parties nationally are doing to address them. And when you've got someone who genuinely understands their local community, whether or not they are representing any of the mainstream parties, that is something that is always going to win voters over.
I can see behind you the monster raving loony party. Great British tradition at elections that they stand a lot. Any idea at the moment, Pete, what time we might get that result? What's happening around you? What's the mood there?
Well, as I say, we're just waiting now for the declaration. We're expecting it to come.
Get on with it.
Probably the next 5 to 10 minutes or so. George Galloway
is
yet to arrive.
All right.
Incidentally, so most of the journalists are not inside here, but outside waiting for him to arrive.
Okay, 5-10 minutes.
And then obviously we'll hope to speak to him after the declaration here.
I'm just going to leave you with the live feed for a moment. I just need to top up on the snacks. Have you got some snacks tonight before you're waiting for the result to come in? Please do let us know what you're snacking on. Yeah, I'll just turn the volume up while I go and reload on the snacks, if you'll bear with me. Thanks a lot. It's been a long night. I mean, it's nearly 2 in the morning now. So I'll just be back with you in a moment.
50% Muslim population. But Mr. Farage said whether it is in Tower Hamlets or Spark Hill or wherever it may be in the country, it will embolden people to believe that a vote for a candidate who thinks what's happening in Gaza is more important than what's happening in Britain. It will embolden that whole movement, and maybe they will win a few more seats at a general election. Well, let's get more on the sort of outlook across the whole of the United Kingdom and how this by-election ties in with that, because with us all night has been Joe Twyman from the pollsters Delta poll. And Joe, I'm interested on that point. If George Galloway does win, how big a ripple impact will it have, do you think, on politics in general?
Well, I think there's two ways to look at this. You could look at this in terms of his impact in Parliament. He is just one MP representing a party with only one MP in the House of Commons. And so from that perspective, he can make a few speeches and ask a few questions, but his impact is going to be relatively limited. But, and this is the really important point, the impact that he could have more generally is enormous, not least because the next few days could be dominated by coverage of this result, and we will see time and again George Galloway, his team, his supporters all over the front pages of the newspapers, all over the news broadcasts, talking about the issues they want to talk about,
I've got my snacks.
Promoting their
Let's see, should be imminent.
And making the points that they have been making throughout this campaign. And those are the kind of things that Labour will at best feel very uncomfortable about, and at worst could feel particularly undermined because of the impact that could then have in certain areas. And so I think what this victory represents is the opportunity for George Galloway and people like him to really elevate their position nationally and place themselves on a national stage in a way they haven't been able to up until this point.
OK, Joe, stay with us here on BBC News. If you are just joining us, you're watching BBC News. It is now 2 a.m. and I'm Nikki Schiller with continuing coverage of the Rochdale by-election.
And I'm Lefty, and you are watching my left eye's coverage of the Rochdale by-election. Thanks a lot for joining us here tonight.
Is where the votes are being counted. We know that the turnout was 39.7%. Voters in the Greater Manchester seat are choosing a new MP following the death of Sir Tony Lloyd, who died in January at the age of 73. We are being told to expect a result very soon. The campaigning itself has been described as chaotic. Labour, you'll remember, disowned its candidate Azhar Ali after comments he made in the last couple of hours. George Galloway from the Workers' Party of Britain has claimed that he has won the by-election. Indeed, they are already planning a victory parade in the town. An independent candidate, David Tully, is also said to be doing well. He could come second. Also speaking here on BBC News, the leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice, alleged campaign intimidation. Well, as I said, we will be back as soon as we have an inkling that the result is going to come in Rochdale. Joe Twyman still with us. Joe, we were talking about the ripple effect if George Galloway wins. Interestingly, also, this campaign has an independent that could come second. Just the significance of that is quite big as well, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. When you go back to
I think what's more significant is that Keith's going to get his arse kicked. And if it can happen in this by-election, it could happen in a general election. And that doesn't mean that Labour's going to walk away with it whenever this general election is going to be this year. Despite the poll lead, I don't think it's going to be as clear of a walk in the park as Labour and Keith think it's going to be. So this certainly would be a result, despite all the controversies and everything that we've been through with Azhar Ali, the Green Party candidate, the other former Labour member candidate, and all the other controversies that surrounded this by-election. Really, the most pertinent point is that just because it's not going to be the Tories' election this year doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be Labour's, and people do have a choice. And if people collectively got together and voted for socialist, independent or grassroots party candidates, then they really could give a bloody nose to the establishment and this facade of a two-party system that we have at the moment between the Tories and Labour. And the fact that the media as well continue to perpetuate this myth really does make my blood boil sometimes, because lest we forget, the Liberal Democrats were in government more recently than Labour were in the coalition from 2010 to 2015. So why people think it's just a choice, I'm not saying that I would vote Lib Dem by any means. But my point is, it just goes to show that it's not a binary choice between the Tories and Labour, like they'd have you believe, and the mainstream media would have you believe. It's down to how people vote, and people do have a choice.
Looking at this by-election.
Expect that Labour would win at a general election, but if the last 10 years or so of British politics have taught us anything, it's that nothing can be ruled out entirely. 50% of the vote at the last election, you would expect in a general election for them to do very well. In fact, in normal circumstances, you would expect a by-election such as this to be a relatively easy win for them. By-elections are always unusual, but this one is.
I'll say this bread's really good. I'm having bread and hummus. That's amazing. Sorry. Let's go on.
Of the Labour candidate, I think, has had a huge impact, and though George Galloway has done very well, I think he really would have struggled against what presumably would have been quite a formidable Labour campaign.
Yep, okay, Joe, I just want to take you back to the live pictures that we have from Rochdale and the count. There you can see the tables are now looking quite empty, which may suggest that we are getting closer to a declaration, because earlier in the evening there was a lot of activity as they were counting the votes. But you can see there the tables are clear, which you would imagine means that those ballots have been counted and that they have been now hopefully being verified. We were hearing from Peter
So it's
Sol,
done. No recounts by the looks of it.
That there were a lot of journalists outside, and the reason they were outside is they are waiting for George Galloway to arrive. And of course, you can't have a declaration until all the candidates are there. So basically, we are waiting for George Galloway to arrive.
Just while they're all getting together, it looks like this is about to be the time. Thanks a lot for keeping things cordial in the chat as well. A lot of messages coming in. If you do have a pertinent question or point, please do consider using our super chats to help support the channel as well. We've got super stickers as well. If you'd like to consider becoming a member of the channel for just the price of a coffee, every month you can get a great number of perks, which you're free to check out as well. It looks like the results are about to come in, and thanks a lot for being with us here tonight on My Left Eye. If you've not done so, please do subscribe, hit the thumbs up button and all of that jazz. It really does help to support us. We're a new but growing channel. It's great to have you as part of our growing community of socialists who just want to call for a more just society, and perhaps the mud in the eye to the established parties tonight would be a small step in achieving that. So thanks a lot for being here, to each and every one of you as well, and thanks for your continued support. As we see the Looney Party candidate just going across the tables there, just having a quick look. That's some hat that he's got there, as I'm sure you'll agree. Yeah, Looney River Party.
In this by-election, which we are waiting for the result of. As I said, George Galloway from the Workers' Party of Britain declared an early victory as that counting was continuing, and the former Labour MP Chris Williamson, who is now deputy leader of the Workers' Party of Britain, told our political correspondent Peter Sol he is confident of a George Galloway victory.
We're very confident that it's a comfortable win for George, and this will send a shockwaves, I think, through the corridors of power in Westminster. But more important than that, I think it will give confidence to insurgent campaigns all over the country who are looking for a genuine alternative to the mainstream political parties. Because our democracy has been stolen from us in this country. Both Labour and the Conservative Party are on the same page economically, are on the same page on international policy as well. They're both signed up to the war machine that millions of people across the country and thousands of people in Rochdale are currently experiencing. And so George, I think, is offering hope to those people, but also...
Yeah, get your drum rolls ready. This is coming any moment now.
the country are also concerned about international policy.
This
as
is
well.
just a replay from the interview we
The fact
saw
is that our
earlier.
government and the main opposition party is actually supporting massacres of Palestinian innocent.
It's coming in now live here on My Left Eye on our late night live stream. Thanks so much for being here as well.
People speaking out against it, and George Galloway and the Workers' Party.
Here we go.
He's doing just that.
Some of the other parties think that the campaign here has been pretty toxic, to be honest, and they lay the blame for that at George Galloway's door.
Well, I mean, they would do, wouldn't they? But it's absolutely not. I mean, we have fought, George Galloway's fought, the Workers' Party has fought an incredibly positive campaign. We're speaking out for peace, we're speaking out against war, we're calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. We're speaking out for an economic policy that actually supports ordinary working class people in this country, gives people hope. You know, let's address the housing crisis, let's address the collapse in our public services, let's deal with the destruction of our infrastructure. You know, all these things are possible. It just takes political will to bring about a good society. None of the political parties are offering that. What are the political parties offering? And both Labour and the Conservative are offering the same thing. I mean, Labour's saying that there'll be no public ownership of our utilities, so they're quite happy to sit back and allow public utilities to rip off consumers. I mean, look, you know, British Gas profits have increased by nearly tenfold, and you know, millions of people are struggling to pay their energy bills. What an absolute disgrace! What an outrage! People want to see public ownership of our utilities, of our railways. They want to see hope. They want to see an industrial strategy where, you know, young people have got access to or hope for you know, a decent job and a decent future and a decent career.
Was this what the Workers' Party of Britain are going to be vying for? More green energy jobs? That'd be great to see.
Any news of George Galloway arriving yet?
No, but there are lots of people waiting outside the front door, and I can see a few police officers as well outside the front door, which suggests to me that his arrival is fairly imminent. We were told that the declaration would be around now at some point. What needs to happen before that is for all of the candidates to be taken in by the returning officer into the count, just to check the results. They'll then be informed of it, and then they will come out onto this stage here behind me, and the result will be read out. But as we've been reporting for the past couple of hours now, the wide expectation is that George Galloway has won this seat, has won this by-election here in Rochdale. Another huge victory, another thing for him to chalk up on the long list of political achievements in his career. He's actually stood in every single general election since 1987, and several by-elections in between, with a wildly varying degree of success, really. But this one looks like it's going to go down in a similar fashion to Bradford West in 2012, when he rode triumphantly in a car around a car park after that. We'll wait and see what he does in the wee small hours here in Rochdale. But what he has successfully done once again, really, is appeal to the voters in a town that has a pretty large Muslim population.
Yeah, just a couple of comments there. Morbius, you're from North Islington and you're wondering about Corbyn's next move. I'm pretty sure that he'll win as an independent in the general election with a decent majority as well, so that would be further mud into Keir Starmer's eye, and then yeah, we'll see what happens after that. If you've got another comment or pertinent question, please do use the super chats. I'll try and keep up with as much as I can in the chat tonight, but if you've got an urgent point, please do consider using the super chats.
It's all because we pulled our candidate out, and you know, well, pulled the support for the candidate, and they did that for good reasons, because of the comments he made that were widely considered or widely alleged to be anti-Semitic. He did apologise for them, but they say they did that for the right reasons, and this is because the party has changed and the problems of anti-Semitism.
He's going to say it. He said it. He said it.
Firmly behind them now.
He said it. He went there. He went there. He went there. Obviously, he was going to go there with the anti-Semitism. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Have you got a calendar, sir? Do you know it's 2024? That's all since been debunked. Long debunked. Long debunked. The fact that the mainstream media keep perpetuating that absolute lie just goes to show the state of affairs with the mainstream media in this country these days. Crazy. Just get your tongue right down Starmer's trousers. It's unbelievable. It's sick that they still try and press this misinformation around the place. He's turned the party around. What a load of horse crap.
And they will see that as being far more important in terms of the wider public perception than potentially irritating some of their voters in the British Muslim population.
And the other thing that's interesting, you're hearing on the ground there, I know you were mentioning this earlier, that an independent candidate could come second.
Yes, we heard from David Tully a short while ago here on BBC News, and he is a local figure in Rochdale, and yeah, you know, he just decided a few weeks ago that he was fed up with the slate of candidates in front of them, that no one really, in his view, or hardly any of them, were actually from the town. He runs a local business and he wanted to stand on local issues, and he's managed to gain an awful lot of support in a very short space of time. He's his business is well known. There's advertising for it all over the place, so I suppose you already had a kind of brand awareness, but yeah, pretty normal chap really. Pretty bemused by the attention on.
Well, we'll see how he does. An independent candidate could be coming second as well, pushing Labour into third. That'd be even worse for Labour, of course.
Just give me a sense of your campaign. It's been an extraordinary one for all of us to cover it, really. But you've been really on the ground right from the start. What's it been like?
Yeah, right from the start, we were out there wanting to speak to all 11 candidates. There was loads of people in the running, weren't there? Including Dave Tully, another businessman, Michael Howarth. These were just a couple of guys who thought, you know what, we've lived in Rochdale all our lives. We're sick of the negativity around the town, the stories of everything being in decline. We're going to put our hands up and try and stand it and make a difference. And Dave Tully, it would appear, has done fantastically well. As you mentioned, he already did have the recognition of his name being Dave Tully Motoring. I think it is his car repair business, but he's also a key figure in a local rugby club within the community of amateur sport, so he's been able to get himself out and about. But in terms of the campaign more generally, yes, straight away it was clear it was going to be eventful. No one could have predicted the twists and turns that we've had. I think as soon as George Galloway, the by-election specialist, threw his name in the hat with a big Muslim community here in Greater Manchester and in Rochdale particularly, it was clear.
Whoa, hang on, fella. Whoa. There are people from all faiths who support a ceasefire in Gaza.
Right up until the death, it felt like everybody thought they were in with a chance, but it does seem like a couple of people are out in front.
Of course, there were a very particular set of circumstances here. Labour dropping its support for its candidate, but what the message seems to be from voters here is a plague on all of the mainstream parties' houses, really. And do you get, I mean, you speak to an awful lot of voters, do you get that sense, talking to people around Greater Manchester, that they're just a little bit...
Well, people are sick of the mainstream political parties. Of course they are. You're going to see a lot more things like citizens' assemblies happening this year as well. People are done with the system, they're done with the parties. First past the post is obviously a load of crap. It's not representative. Don't have any form of PR. There's only Bulgaria, apart from us in Europe, who still use first past the post. And of course people are sick of the system and the parties. That's why you end up with people like the monster raving loonies who you can see in the background there.
Well, we won't really know, will we, ever, what would have happened had Labour's candidate still been in the race all the way through. Potentially he would have done as well as he might have been expected. They came into this by-election with a 9,500 majority, 24,000 votes in total at 2019. The question tonight is, where have those votes gone, and would they have stuck with Labour had he not ended up being dropped as a candidate?
And just a word on the former MP, Tony Lloyd, as well. He was very, very popular, wasn't he, around here?
Yeah, he was a well-respected politician.
He did abstain on the ceasefire. That's worth mentioning.
Years out to become the first police and crime commissioner in Greater Manchester, and then he actually stepped up from there to become the first interim mayor, the role that Andy Burnham ended up being as mayor. He actually wanted to be the Labour mayoral candidate, but Andy Burnham beat him to that, and that's when he went back into Parliament. The seat came up here in Rochdale.
Yeah, just noticing what he's saying in the chat there about Andrew Feinstein could potentially take the seat away from Starmer in Holborn St Pancras. That would be a thing as well. It's definitely worth reminding you all that in a local council election recently, a Green Party member took the seat from a Labour Party member right in Keir Starmer's patch, so you never know. That's if that's an indicator for what people are feeling in the area, you could really see Andrew Feinstein making a real challenge towards Starmer. It's absolutely true.
That's up to the council, isn't it? There was another campaign message from George Galloway was that he was going to try and bring a maternity ward ago. So these are things that he...
And again, I'm really sorry about the buffering there tonight. And Odin Allfather says the Tories have become the Whigs and the Lino Party has become the new Tories. Yeah, Labour in name only. Of course.
He be a voice for the Palestinian people in Parliament in a way that he says that the Labour Party hasn't been, and other parties haven't been. So I think we can expect some of that from him. In terms of what he's going to do for Rochdale, well, we'll have to wait and see. He talks a lot about how we could potentially help be able to find a potential new owner, he said, because of going out of business. So these are some of the things he threw on campaign, and we'll start in weeks much beyond the ball.
And presumably he won't be able to help Rochdale much on the pitch. Shall we?
I'm hoping the result comes in soon. Yeah, that's enough from that. Hope it comes in soon as well. Nearly finished my brew. Gasping here. Come on.
Been able to cause an awful lot of noise on the campaign trail here. He might get a little bit lost in Parliament, but I'm sure there'll be plenty of him in the coming days. He may end up, of course, only for Rochdale for a matter of months, because there is a general election around the corner and Labour will select a different candidate, and you'd think that they wouldn't make the mistake again in terms of candidates candidates, and they would hope to very much take back this seat.
Well, that's a fair point. As well as with any other recent by-election, there is going to be a general election coming up soon. So where's Galloway? Is he here?
Waiting for at the count. Apologies for the little bit of breakup on the signal there in Rochdale. Sometimes that means there's a lot more mobile phones heading into that area, which could suggest maybe there are more journalists moving in, and that we may see George Galloway shortly at that count, because of course his team have already claimed that he has won the Rochdale by-election, and they're already planning a victory parade. As I said, we are waiting for him to arrive at the count. Then, as Peter was explaining, they get taken away, and the officials give them the sort of result before it is announced on the stage, when you see all of the people there and you get the returning officer who comes out and reads out the results. We will
done well, except Mr. Galloway. But the implications for our democracy are very serious indeed. Is that really how we want our by-elections?
How much airtime's this guy going to get? Seriously. Like, why is Richard Tice all over it?
My political life, some of my team have been in politics 30 years, they've never seen anything like it. So to suggest that sour grapes, frankly, is a nonsense.
That is the leader of Reform UK.
I think it is sour grapes, though, let's be honest.
Correspondent making quite a few claims there a little earlier in the evening. I want to take you back to the live pictures from Rochdale. There you can see the stage is set up, and in the last couple of minutes while we were listening to Richard Tice, a lot more people entered that room, many of them wearing rosettes, so part of the campaign teams. There are 11 candidates who are standing in this by-election. As we have heard, George Galloway, who is from the Workers' Party of Britain, says that he has won. There you can see our political correspondent Pete Soul, who has been with us all night. He's been moving around trying to find out what's going on, looking around with the other journalists. The lady you can just see is Annabelle Tiffin, who's just arrived. She is BBC Northwest's political editor, who's also been trying to find out what's going on. She was the one who said that George Galloway's party were already planning a election victory rally. So we are expecting, I think, that result very shortly now, hopefully. We were waiting for George Galloway to arrive. That is what the delay has been about, waiting for him to arrive at the count. What then happens is once all of the candidates are there, they get taken away by the election officials and told the result before they come on to.
Well, it looks like the only delay at the moment is that Galloway isn't there to make the victory speech. It's looking very likely, yeah.
And by-election night, of course, no, exactly the same. Also joining us throughout the night is the polling expert Joe Twyman from Delta Poll. Joe, I wanted to pick up on that issue that Richard Tice made. Concerns about the safety as we go forward. This is an issue at the moment for the political parties, isn't it?
Yes.
No, it's not. It's drummed up bollocks because some people are protesting outside Parliament and they consider this to be a threat So threats have been made. It's the way that they're ridiculously conflating this thing is absolute bollocks. There's been no threats made by the protesters or anything close to it, and this is absolutely pathetic to see the media giving a platform to this, the mainstream media, of course.
There is a sense amongst the public, and I was at one of the by-elections up in Wellingborough, and there were a lot of people saying to me they had lost faith in our politics and our politicians. Basically, they were saying to me they didn't believe them when they said things. From the polling that you do, is that a sense that you can see across the country?
Well, it's sometimes easy to overestimate the degree to which that is a new phenomenon. When the Houses of Parliament caught fire in 1824, people gathered on the other side of the Thames to cheer. So it's not an entirely new thing, but it is the case.
200 years ago.
It's going back really to the start of the 2000s. We've had a succession of events, whether it's the Iraq War.
People are sick of the bloody government. Of course they bloody are. Why is he dragging up something from 200 years ago, for God's sake? Just look at recent events. Look at the absolute shithouse that the Tories have left us in for the last 15 years. Of course there's a lack of trust in the government.
But the political process generally. And we've seen out of that parties such as Reform, or before it Brexit, the Brexit Party, and UKIP emerged to satisfy the desire that some people have to vote against the mainstream parties. And in many ways tonight is another example of that. We may have a situation where George Galloway comes first and an independent candidate, David Tully.
Why are they dancing around the issue that, of course, Labour and the Tories are going to get given the finger in this result? Debating over who's going to come third or fourth. The point is that people are sick of the Tories and they're sick of Labour.
I think that's perhaps an interpretation, but nonetheless, it's because of the withdrawal of the official Labour candidate that we've seen George Galloway be able to come in and as I say, we assume win tonight.
Do you think, as we look ahead to a general election, there is going to be a lot more scrutiny on the candidates that are put forward, particularly with the era of social media that we're in and all of the vitriol that you see flying around on social media?
It's a really good question, whether it's social media or whether it's camera phones. The world of technology...
It's the Tories. It's the bloody Tories. It's not phones. It's not social media. People are sick of the Tories. They're sick of the right wing in general, and that's why they're rejecting both of them in this by-election. Give over. It's ridiculous. Oh, so let's blame social media. That's why people don't like the government.
Go back to tweets that people sent, perhaps.
Are they for real? They can't be for real. Oh, this must all be because of Facebook or Twitter. Yeah, of course. It's not the fact that we've had 15 years of austerity and cuts, and that the Tories are so aligned with Labour that you can't put a cigarette paper between them. No, let's just blame social media. That's not a new thing. It's not a new thing by any stroke of the imagination. We've had social media for decades now.
At a by-election, imagine how difficult it is to do for over 600 candidates in the run-up to a general election.
How hard is it for the political parties to cut through with the messages that they want to hear over all of that noise that is on social media?
Well, it's very much a challenge for both the individuals themselves and the parties to cut through. In fact, this this is one of the main difficulties that our polls have shown the Conservatives have had, particularly when it comes to their economic policies. All the announcements that were made in the last 9 months, for instance, whether it's policy announcements, whether it's photo calls wearing hard hats in factories, or whether it's something like the autumn statement. Up until this week, over the last 9 months, there's been very little change in the percentage of people who think that the Conservatives are best on the economy. Statistically, it's been flat for 9 months because they haven't been able to cut through. And I think that's less to do with
what? We've had record inflation and a mountain of cuts instead of public investment, and now people are starting to see that the Tories aren't good for the economy because they just keep piling money into private hands. Has it taken 15 years for geniuses like you in the mainstream media to figure that out? Oh, God.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating general election this time round because of all of the things you've said. And also, if we look at social media and the disinformation that's there, those AI generated things that are already flying around on social media.
What in the bloody hell are they talking about? These are the same people who just moments ago were peddling the anti-Semitism bullshit that we saw perpetuated towards the end of the last decade. It's 2024 now, just to remind the BBC here of what time we're in, and that sort of stuff has been long debunked. So don't talk about things being perpetuated on social media. Of course there are. Yeah, of course there are things that are without facts that can't be backed up, and there's a lot of bullshit on social media. But the mainstream media are perpetuating misinformation as well. So it's a bit rich for them to try and come out with stuff like that. You can see Galloway's here.
Galloway,
looks like they're going to be going
screen,
now.
Has now arrived at the count.
They're all there. There's Mark Coleman stood just to the right of George Galloway, as you can see there.
Hat which he's worn a lot.
That's Mark's wife Wendy stood on the right, as you see it, of Mark Coleman as well.
Rochdale. Yeah, you can see him there in the middle of your screen. His party, the Workers' Party of Britain, has already claimed that it has won.
Sorry about the buffering, really sorry.
Collapse for the major parties. At the last general election, Labour, Conservative and Lib Dem made up nearly 90% of
I wonder where the Monster Raving Loony candidate is. I'm not sure if you can spot them.
In Rochdale. And so a big fall for that
could be anywhere.
Unprecedented.
Could be anywhere.
By historical standards. Of course, the situation in Rochdale is very unusual, and the circumstances of this particular by-election are not what you would expect either at other by-elections or at a general election. But nonetheless,
so there we go. We're about to get the result. Thanks a lot for sticking out with us on the live stream tonight. You can see all the candidates lined up there. George Galloway in the middle of your screen, just having a chat with someone there, and you can see Mark Coleman to his right as you look, along with his partner Wendy, the Monster Raving Loony candidate, obviously towards the left of your screen. No doubt the Monster Raving Loonies will be holding out for 0 votes.
That they already do know what the result is, because normally before you see them all lined up, the election officials will have told them what's already happened and what the result is. You saw George Galloway there being hugged in the centre of the screen.
It does appear that this is just a formality now. It appears that Galloway has won. I think it's safe to, yeah, I'm going to make an early declaration here. This is going to go to Galloway. This is Galloway's one. You can tell by the goings on there. Everyone's been patting him on the back and shaking his hand and hugging him, as I said there. So it appears this is just a formality. George Galloway has taken the seat from Labour, but let's go to the official count now. It's official. It's Galloway. It's going to be Galloway.
Means that George Galloway
I'm calling
has gone in. And he won, you'll remember, the Bradford West by-election in 2012, another constituency which has a significant Muslim population. Now, as we've been hearing through the evening, his critics accuse him of stoking division in towns that he's previously had little to do with. In his campaign, it had a heavy focus, as we've been hearing, on the plight of...
And when it's, as it does appear to be the case, if Galloway is elected winner and you were backing him, please do help celebrate by hitting the thumbs up button and helping to share this stream on the algorithm, or consider joining us as a member as well. Or you can post a celebratory message on our super chats, which are now live. Of course, please do consider helping to celebrate and support the channel in that fashion as we go into the official declaration of the result.
Brexit Party, their candidate was Simon Danchuk. Now, he was actually the MP for Rochdale until 2017. At that time, he was a Labour MP, but Labour suspended him after he sent lewd text to a 17-year-old girl, for which he has apologised for. During the campaign, he in his campaigning had said that it was a two-horse race between him and George Galloway. It does now seem that an independent candidate, Dave Tully, is...
Do you want to quickly post your opinions in the chat? What position you think Labour are going to come if Galloway's going to win? Do you think he'll come second, third, fourth? Whereabouts? Just very quickly let us know in the chat. Place your bets, obviously. No competition, no serious competition. Just let us know your thoughts.
Part of the run-up to the by-election, as he was on holiday. It has been a chaotic by-election. The Green Party disowned...
Again, sorry about the buffering.
There have been occasions where candidates have been disavowed by their party. For instance, in 2019 at the general election, both the Conservatives and the SNP disavowed their candidates. And there have been by-elections, as we've talked about, where insurgent candidates such as George Galloway, and indeed on some occasions George Galloway himself.
I'm going to stick my neck out and say they might come third. I think I'm going to say that they might come third.
For a different party. But as anyone who's observed politics over the years will know, to get one of those is unusual. To get all three in one by-election is unique. This is unprecedented times. And so, given the unprecedented circumstances, it is perhaps no surprise that the result may be unprecedented in terms of that collapse for the three main parties.
Yeah, and how worried will the three main parties be about that collapse? Will they just say this was a one-off, unusual by-election?
No, they should be worried. They should realise that everyone's absolutely sick of it.
Well, I don't think the Lib Dems will be that concerned at all.
Coming up, so let's have a listen.
Here we go. Here we go. This is it.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
It's a returning officer.
Thank you for your patience. Would the candidates join me on the stage, please?
Oh, they get. Here we go. Here we go.
Rochdale on 29th February 2024. Do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate is as follows. Azhar Ali, Labour Party candidate, 2,402. Mark Coleman, 455.
Hey, not bad for Mark.
Simon Christopher Danchuk, Reform UK candidate, 1,968. Ian Donaldson, Liberal Democrat candidate, 2,164. Paul Simon Ellington,
So Lib Dems have come ahead of Reform.
Conservative Party candidate, 3,731.
Christ.
George Galloway,
That's more than I was expecting.
Workers' Party of Britain candidate, 12,000.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Wow. Wow. Wow.
12,335. Michael Howarth, Independent candidate, 246. William Leckie Howarth, Independent candidate, 523. Guy Nicholas Otten, Green Party candidate, 436. Ravin Roden Subordna, official Montserrat Looney Party candidate, 209.
Hey! Way! Way! You gotta have a laugh, haven't you?
David Anthony Tully, Independent candidate, 6,600.
Well, that's a big surprise as well. 6,600 for that independent candidate.
That was 6,638. I do hereby declare that George Galloway...
It's George Galloway with a majority of around 6,000 as expected. Just to take you through the results again. And so I'm just going to mute the footage there. So 39.7% turnout. Azhar Ali, 2,402. Mark Coleman, the Just Up All supporter independent candidate, 455. Reform Party, 1,968. Let's just hear from George.
For Gaza, you have paid and you will pay a high price for the role that you have played in enabling, encouraging and covering for the catastrophe presently going on in occupied Palestine in the Gaza Strip. Rochdale Town Councillors, I put you on notice now that I hope to put together a grand alliance of all the parties to remove
Okay. Right. We appear to have a protest here. This is interesting. Okay, I've mentioned before that while Galloway is absolutely sound on his anti-war stance, his opinion on environment is somewhat controversial, shall we say. So I'm not sure what this is.
I want to put the town councillors on notice that we intend to clean the town hall clock. I make, of course, no disrespect to the returning officer and his fine staff who ran this campaign today and this count this evening virtually flawlessly, nor any public servant in the town hall. But the councillors have to go, and I intend to try to put together a grand alliance that will change Rochdale for the better just 12 weeks from now at the local elections. I thank God for this great victory. I thank my wife, my 6 children, my 5 grandchildren, who've all been working in this campaign. I thank my agent, my campaign manager, my dear friend and wise counsel, Imtiaz. I thank all of my campaign team for the phenomenal work that they did. I thank the people of Rochdale who voted for me in such numbers, but promised to work faithfully for all Rochdalians and to work for the day where you can again be born in Rochdale, again be born in Rochdale. I want to tell Mr. Starmer above all that the plates have shifted tonight.
They have.
And as Jacob Rees-Mogg just said on television, in talking of me as a parliamentary orator of note, that Keir Starmer's problems just got 100 times more serious than they were before today. This is going to spark a movement, a landslide, a shifting of the tectonic plates in scores of parliamentary constituencies, beginning here in the North West, in the West Midlands, in London, from Ilford to Bethnal Green and Bow. Labour is on notice that they have lost the confidence of millions of their voters who loyally and traditionally voted for them generation after generation. I've heard some of the narrative being spun around this election result this evening. Yes, it's true that every Muslim is bitterly angry at Keir Starmer and his misnamed Labour Party. But you would be very foolish if you did not realise that millions of other citizens of our country are too.
Can't argue with that, can you?
Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak are two cheeks of the same backside.
Yep.
And they both got well and truly spanked tonight here in
Yes, he's right there.
Rochdale. Finally, I congratulate David Tully on his remarkable achievement.
So that's David Tully, who got over 6,000 votes there. 6,638 as an independent candidate.
And trust that even the most biased journalist in the room will realise that this is the first time ever in British political history that the two big parties of the state were thoroughly and soundly beaten.
That is a great thing. That is a great thing, undeniably. Whatever your feelings about George Galloway are, this is very, very historically pertinent.
Wherever Keir Starmer currently hangs out. I look forward to working with Mr. Tully.
We'll analyse the results shortly. Let's just hear the rest of Galloway's speech, but we'll go through the full recap of the order of votes.
Clean. Because this town has been badly let down. Once one of the most prosperous towns in England, now one of the poorest, whose heart has been piece by piece removed. The maternity, the A&D. I understand you can't even be locked up in Rochdale. There's not even a jail cell to toss.
Sorry, we are a little behind. I'm just catching up with the lagging on the screen yet.
Byelection was fed up with Labour's position on that.
Apologies about that.
For they wanted to take a much
Sorry for the lagging, for the delay. All right. So the results, of course, George Galloway first, 12,335. In second place, with 6,638 was the independent candidates. In third place, Azhar Ali of Labour. So Labour came third overall, and in fourth place was the Conservatives, 3,731, followed by Lib Dem, then Reform, and then the independents, other independents, including Mark Coleman and the Greens, with around 400 to 500 votes each. So that's the official result there. George Galloway first. Of course, completely overturning the Labour majority. Now has a majority of around 6,000. It's an extraordinary result. It really is, as he said with his acceptance speech, his victory speech there, mud in the eye for the mainstream political parties, and he's put the Labour Party on notice, specifically as you heard in Galloway's victory speech there. So sorry about the lagging, and yeah, overall Reform came fifth for all of their hoo-haing. In fact, it turned out the bookmakers were correct, but Reform Party really lagging quite far behind there. So, as predicted, as expected, it's now official. George Galloway is the Member of Parliament for Rochdale. And let us know your thoughts about that in the comments. I'll try and keep up with you on the comments as much as I can. If you've got a pertinent point, please do use our super chats. It's also a great way to help support the channel as well. So a lot going on there as well. You saw some sort of protest happening. It looked like a bit of glitter throwing going on in protest against George Galloway's previous climate policies. Obviously, always on point when it comes to supporting Gazans as standing against war, but there is a little controversy over his stance on climate, of course, and I'm not sure what all that was about, but as soon as we get some more information, try and bring that to you as soon as we can. But it really does fling mud in the eye from the mainstream political parties as well. So if that can happen in Rochdale, as he said, it could happen anywhere, and maybe there'll be this continuous stance against the mainstream political parties in the next general election. Doesn't look like Keir Starmer's going to get the walk in the park that he was hoping for, that's for sure. That's for sure. We'll just turn that down a little. And, well, it's been a long night. It certainly has. This is not only the first ever live stream that we've done late night, it's also been going on for more than 3 hours. So thanks a lot for all of you who've stuck it out with us during this by-election special. And we will, of course, be doing a general election special when it comes to the date, whenever Fishy Rishi decides to set a date for that. But this indeed is an indicator, if anything, that Keir Starmer isn't going to get the walk in the park that he was expecting. You would imagine that a working class area such as Rochdale would be easy pickings for Keir Starmer, but in the Ferrari over Azhar Ali, as well as the ceasefire vote last week, let's not forget that's been a massive factor. Keir Starmer's conduct and the Labour Party's conduct within Parliament, I would certainly say, has come into the voters' minds in Rochdale. Just want to also briefly add my personal congratulations to my dear friend Mark Coleman, who got almost 500 votes there as in his first time standing as an independent. I know that he's had some great people campaigning with him, and if that took some more votes away from the Tories or Labour, then it's all worthwhile. But certainly shows that independent candidates and members of grassroots parties certainly have agency as we come into the next general election. Voters really need to wake up and realise that they do have a choice. It is not just a case of choosing between red Tory and blue Tory. It is all down to what people choose to vote for collectively, and there could be 5, 6, 7, 8 boxes or more for people to be able to tick in the next general election. The choice is there, and the very small amount of democratic freedom that we have under first past the post certainly needs to be used in the best measure possible. So that's the result coming in there on the chart. 40% of the votes for the Workers' Party of Britain, that's obviously George Galloway's, and 21% for independent candidates and Conservatives 12%. Labour in fourth. Labour in fourth, pushed from holding the seat to fourth place, which again just goes to re-emphasise how people are rejecting Starmer's neoliberalism. There appears to be some kind of fracas going on. All right, what's happening? What's happening here? What's going on? It's all. Is it kicking off, Margaret? What's going on?
To work with him at some point, anyway. George Galloway, should be said, as a long-term critic of the BBC for whatever reasons, and has chosen to speak to.
Okay, it just looks like no, it's no fracas. Sorry, false alarm. Just looks like the BBC can't get a word in edgewise. He's choosing to speak to other political commentators, probably on account of the treatment he's had in the past, like we showed you in the clips earlier on in the stream, from his historical interviews with Jeremy Paxman and the like. He clearly doesn't care for the mainstream media. So, similar to the questions that Paxman was posing, I suppose the first question that might have come out of the interviewer's mouth was, "Are you proud to have unseated a dead person in the general election?" No disrespect to Tony Lloyd, of course, whose death triggered this by-election, but I'm just trying to highlight the kind of mainstream media commentary that we tend to get there. So just a recap of the votes, because the chart was only up there briefly. Galloway and the Workers' Party of Britain in first place, independent candidate in second place, in third place, in fourth place actually was Azhar Ali from Labour, and in third place Lib Dems. I think that's right. Did I write that down correctly? But Labour pushed into fourth place from having held the seat. That's quite sensational. And it's not as though the Tories obviously can't spin this as a victory to them. This is clearly a case of people showing up against the so-called mainstream parties there. So more of that to come. As long as they are socialist leaning, as long as they're calling for a ceasefire in Gaza as well, then the main parties certainly have to mind the backs coming into the next general election. That goes without saying. And this is the first sort of this is the first indicator of the no ceasefire, no vote campaign that is going around at the moment, and that has been spoken about several times at the demonstrations in favour of a ceasefire in Gaza that have numbered in the hundreds of thousands every weekend in London and in cities all across the country. Millions of people coming together. So no ceasefire, no vote, certainly seems to be the clarion call from the electorate of Rochdale, a working class, traditional working class area, and Labour have clearly lost the vote. They've clearly lost the faith of the electorate in this instance. So just quickly going back over some of the comments. Reform have utterly failed there, as a couple of you are pointing out as well. I can see a lot of you are very happy that George Galloway has taken the seat. Labour in fourth. Keith, your prediction was correct. Keith Mitchell there. Thanks a lot for joining us on the chat tonight as well. This is definitely sensational, and it's a by-election that has drawn a lot of attention from the media, and rightly so, because this is, as I said, a massive indicator sociologically, politically, as to where things might go towards the general election. Whilst people were expecting Labour to walk away with a massive majority, I've had strong reservations about that for a long time now, particularly where independent candidates are concerned, grassroots independent candidates, as well as some of the grassroots parties, and I think that the Greens might take some unexpected gains as well, and that's the indication that I'm getting from this seat, as well as other recent by-elections. Wellingborough and Kingswood, as we'll remember, clearly show that people weren't going out in droves to vote for Labour. However, that was more down to a collapse in the Tory vote, and but clearly here people wanted to show that they don't just want to get the Tories out. It's not as easy as that. It's not as simple as that. You will get the FBPE types coming out with this again, and if you try to say that you don't support Keir Starmer, they'll try and assume that you want the Tories to get into power, but that's not the case. This is a clear move against the right wing in its entirety, whether it's blue Tory, red Tory, yellow Tory, whatever colour Tory. This is very significant. You have to admit this is very significant indeed.
In Rochdale, a lot of people feel like they've been a bit forgotten here, let down. That the town has had a bad reputation, some of the difficulties that it's had.
Yeah, just going off the back of what the BBC is saying there, the north of England especially, and we are coming to you from the northwest of England this evening. This is where I'm based. The northwest of England has received the very, very worst end of austerity that we've seen. I mean, you remember Cameron's Northern Powerhouse and all that. That was absolute rubbish. There was no real investment going on. Despite producing half of the GDP of the country, the north of England receives the least amount of investment. And that's just got to show, after 15 years, the people of Rochdale and people of Greater Manchester in general are sick of this. There's all kinds of issues. Homelessness is on the rise. Unemployment, the lack of public investment, public services are being decimated, and it's not just in Rochdale, it's all across the northwest and indeed the wider north itself. Is a reminder of the full result. We'll go back to the BBC now, just for a moment.
George Galloway has won, as you can see there. The Workers' Party of Britain with 12,335 votes. As we were mentioning, the independent candidate David Tully coming second with 6,630.
That's also very sensational. David Tully getting 6,600.
The candidate that on the ballot paper was for Labour, Azhar Ali, but of course he was disowned by the party early on in the campaign, 2,402. The Liberal Democrats candidate Ian Donaldson with 2,165, and the Reform Party candidate Simon Danchuk with 1,968. So what does that mean about the share of the vote? And there you can see George Galloway's party picking up 40% of the share of that vote, with 21% for the independent candidate David Tully and the Conservatives on 12. So in terms of the share change, what has changed this since the 2019 general election? Workers' Party of Britain up 40%, of course, because they didn't stand last time, and the independent David Tully also up 21% because he didn't stand last time. But the Conservatives and Labour both.
Yeah,
so that means
Keith Mitchell there pointing out that you're in Scotland and you think the North should ally and they can take on Westminster together. Of course, there are already grassroots parties such as the Northern Independence Party, which are calling for all of the northern counties, that is between Cheshire and Scotland, to form essentially their own country, Northumbria, based around the old boundaries there, and to join with Scotland to take on Westminster. I certainly wouldn't have any problem against that. As I said, getting the least amount of investment in the UK, and one of the main tactics of the Northern Independence Party in particular is that to threaten leaving the Union, that is the Union of Great Britain. Actually, as in Scotland's case, has ended up with more government subsidies, more NHS subsidies, free dental care, health care, all these kind of things. So people can come together and make a difference, and it's only when you say to the establishment that you've had enough and you're thinking about breaking away from it that they might actually take a bit of action. I personally am someone who supports Scottish independence, and it would be great to see more autonomy from Westminster as well, for all of the deprived areas of the country.
Election, we would expect things to be different, but there's no doubt that this result represents a very bad day for Keir Starmer. He can, and I'm sure he will, and his representatives will talk about, oh well, the unusual circumstances.
Okay, we'll quickly go to...
Circumstances meant that George...
We're going to see what Keith's got to say. It's not going well. It looks very... It's a sullen mood at the over at the fondue party now. You can see the... doesn't matter how tasty the fondue might be there, Keith. It's really not going to win the voters over. Let's go back to the BBC.
By-election terms, isn't it?
Yes, that the overall result to have George Galloway as first and then an independent as second. So essentially, two independent candidates for all intents and purposes.
Was the screen gone?
First and second has never happened in the modern era. We were searching back through the history books earlier, and we found the
streaming software
combined Scottish Universities constituency in
We're right with you. Here we go.
45 as the last time something along these lines happened. Just the fact that I'm talking about the combined Scottish Universities constituency suggests just how long ago that was. So yes, in modern times this is completely unprecedented and demonstrates just how unusual the circumstances were, but also how difficult the three main parties managed to, how difficult they found it, and how they didn't manage to really get anything like cut through in this particular contest.
Now, Mr. Galloway, in his victory speech, said this was going to spark a movement. How realistic do you think that is from his point of view?
Well, I'm sure that Mr. Galloway's supporters will be saluting his courage, his strength and his indefatigability. But we have to face facts that in a few months, maybe in May, but more likely in the autumn, a general election will arrive, and I think the Workers' Party of Britain and George Galloway and similar...
Well, we'll see how things do work out at the general election. Obviously, he's got a strong majority there, about 6,000. No doubt the BBC and others will try and downplay this victory by George Galloway and try and play it off in whatever fashion that they mean to. I'm going to start to bring things to a close tonight. It's been a long night, but it's been a pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure being with you here tonight. Thanks a lot for your continued support on the channel. Thanks a lot for your comments as well tonight. I'm assuming you've all subscribed. If you've not done so already, please do consider joining us on a membership for the channel. For just the price of a coffee, you can receive some great benefits, including exclusive live streams, exclusive videos and early viewings on our normal videos as well. You're very welcome. Thanks a lot for your comments, and we'll go back to Keith's Fondue Lounge in just a moment to play us out. But that it really, it's a small recompense considering the circumstances at the moment to see the mainstream parties really getting a licking tonight. They've really had a very good hiding, and Keith's Labour Party being pressed down into 4th place, so literally nothing to brag about tomorrow. It'll be very interesting to see Keith's response come the morrow about his excuses for having lost this seat, but that remains to be seen. So I will see things out by taking you across to Keith's Fondue Lounge to see things out. And just once again, thanks a lot for being here. Please do consider becoming a member of the channel and all of that jazz. But for now, that's all on my left eye. And we'll be seeing you soon, hopefully. Good night, everybody. It's a catchy tune, you've got to admit, it's a catchy tune. Thanks a lot, everyone. Thanks for subscribing. Take care, we'll see you soon. Okay, good night, everyone. Thanks a lot. That's definitely it now. Good night.